He was haunted by the same threat. A fair-haired blonde youth repeatedly saw in his dreams a world completely unlike his own where Japan did not exist, and foreign, unfamiliar knowledge settled in his mind. Everyday life besieged him with books, television, and the internet. The game, Resistance Noah, started anew and once again pulled him into its precisely constructed world. Inside the story, the main hero Alex commanded a revolutionary army to defeat the Demon Lord in a traditional conquest. Frequent defeats made the game ruthlessly difficult, but the man did not give up, stubbornly continuing step by step to face its relentless trials. The prologue began with the revolutionary army pronouncing judgment on the demon ruler, a sequence of threats everyone immediately recognized. Alexandra Roddenite emerged as the main heroine, stepping forward with her sword and ordering her forces to go into battle. He did not take his eyes off the spot. The man watched calmly, already accustomed to every movement after countless attempts. Behind her, disciplined soldiers advanced as she led the assault in the world of resistance. When she confronted the Devil Lord in a spacious hall, the man finally realized. The scene fully mirrored the recurring dream that was indelibly etched in his memory. The clash unfolded exactly as Alex remembered. He challenged the Demon Lord in the spacious hall of the game world. A sudden thought struck Menes when he compared the scene with his recurring dreams and felt something was no longer a fabrication. Not having managed to fully comprehend this, Alex rushed forward, addressing him as the Demon Emperor, and immediately began the decisive battle. From the petrified towering stairs, the title of the final boss was announced, and confidently, without hesitation, the name Noah's Menace was proclaimed. When he heard this aloud, he was filled with disbelief. It turned out that the name of the demonic emperor was his own. Alex rushed forward and declared that Menace had become the final boss of this world, and plunged her blade into her with all her strength. Having seen the attack many times, Men calmly assessed the speed and prepared to counterattack. Sitting on his throne, he raised one finger and stopped the sword flying downward without any effort. Finally, he stood up and again reminded her how colossal the gap between them was, like between the Demon Emperor and her. Perfectly timed, he stopped her strike, twisted the trajectory, threw it aside, and acted as if he saw every move before it even began. After she was thrown back, Alex was supported by her soldiers. They rushed to her while she struggled to get back on her feet. Calmly observing, Menace thought that surrender would have spared her from further wounds, but she refused to retreat. His persistence only confirmed the traits of a typical protagonist, and he considered them unnecessary troubles. Recalling the details of his dreams, Men remembered. Alex remained at a low level with beginner skills and corresponding equipment. Although he was called the final boss of this world, he felt detached from the conflict and instead focused on understanding his situation. Standing before them, Menace revealed himself as the final boss of Reses. A deadly game where defeating him was the only way to finish. He realized that the current Alex did not have the strength to overcome the colossal chasm between them. The revolutionary army was crushed across the entire battlefield, and Alex was the only one left alive after the devastating defeat. Instead of finishing them off, Menace decided to activate the creation skill, intending to drive them away. Dark energy spread from his shadow as he moved forward and prepared to execute his plan. Menace ordered the army to surrender and get out, but the armored soldiers lined up along the corridor and ignored his warning. Amidst everything, Alex stood firm and declared. Her determination was to put an end to his rule. She would not retreat. Behind her, mages gathered and launched coordinated spells, waves driving fire toward the throne. Behind the water came lightning magic. It filled the hall with continuous attacks, striking directly at. Despite the obvious difference in strength, they still charged forward with determination, forcing the terror to acknowledge their intent to kill him. The threat felt an unexpected weight as it pondered its role, realizing that defeating him was planned as the proper way to end the game. During his reign, the Noah Empire constantly suffered blows from neighboring states. Yet he noticed the suffering of the people and reconsidered the meaning of his position. With his special ability to create, he subdued the threat and forced the enemy forces to retreat, then united the lands under his rule. Everything he did was intended to protect the Empire and the territories that once belonged to Alex's homeland. Defending the empire, Menes saw that the enemies were increasing and a coup broke out right within his own ranks. Key officials from the Ministry of Internal Affairs secretly conspired with the revolutionary army, undermining his authority from within. The soldiers allowed Alex and her allies to pass and escorted them, under the Prime Minister's orders, directly to the palace. Understanding came along with the threat. It did not arise now. The betrayal inside the empire had long ago pushed these events. In that original game, such betrayal drove the demonic emperor to despair and bitterness against humanity. Memories of betrayal surfaced as the men recalled how they died at the hands of those he tried to protect. Meanwhile, Alex gathered the surviving forces and urged them to continue the attack without delay. Although their joint assault barely touched him, men recognized emotional exhaustion but was still confident in victory. Oxy advanced forward again. He realized, if events follow the structure of the game, it will never stop challenging him. According to that scenario, the battle will repeat until it personally defeats him with its own hands. A faint smile briefly slid across Menezes' face, as he accepted that the final boss was doomed to fall before the protagonist. But another thought surfaced: could Alex's murder now tear him away from that predetermined fate? Hearing danger, Alex froze, and his gaze sharply intensified determination sounded within it. He calmly calculated that removing her and the army in their weakened state would be quite easy. If he strikes first, he reasoned, this cycle can end and he will survive without giving everything away again. Mina hesitated. She realized, killing the protagonist will not end the story. Another hero might appear to replace her. He understood, the final boss is a creature hated by humanity, destined to be hunted and refined, regardless of any circumstances. Alone, he asked what remains for one bound to such a role. If the conflict continued further, nothing would save anyone and no one would find peace, not even himself. Accepting this outcome, Menes decided, perhaps the Demon Emperor simply must put an end to his existence. Menes decided that his defeat could bring everyone a peaceful ending, and a quiet determination settled within him. Without any warning, he activated shadow magic and spread thick fog across the entire battlefield. The thick smoke quickly dispersed, confusing the soldiers and destroying their coordinated assault. Leaning on the cover, Mina retreated from the center of the battle, conserving his strength. Yet Alex pursued him through the haze and struck directly, forcing him to face her assault again. The clash of Alex's blade with Mina ended with the blade piercing him, and the strike landed cleanly before he could pull back. Blood splattered as he staggered and realized his plan had led him straight to this deadly moment. Strength left his body and he fell flat, while Alex froze in shock looking at the fallen Demon Emperor. Silence spread through the hall as the soldiers watched her lower the sword, uncertain if the fight was truly over. Moments later, the army declared victory and announced that the threat had been neutralized. Alexandra Rodonite had ended it. The soldiers celebrated loudly, believing that the Demon Emperor had fallen and that their world was finally saved. In the dim smoke, Mina revealed, during the decisive strike, the body of the created monster had been swapped with his. Thanks to transparency and distraction, he watched the joyful army, remaining unnoticed and still stayed cautious about Alex's response. Removing his mask, he admitted, in their eyes, the evil leader Devil Emperor Minas disappeared. He was no longer there. Turning away from the throne, he decided to live simply, like ordinary people, no longer to be the hated final boss. Leaving the battle behind, Menes left the palace together with his winged demonic partner. He officially renounced his position as the final boss and stepped into a world without this title. To avoid attracting attention, Menes decided to replace his overly sophisticated clothes with simpler ones suitable for ordinary life. In the local shop, he chose new clothes and without hesitation, calmly paid the required amount. After several fittings, he carefully examined himself and prepared to start life no longer as the Demon Emperor. In the shop, people froze, admiring Menes' appearance, and he calmly decided that the chosen clothes would suit him for his new life. Pulling fragments of knowledge from dreams, he realized he had never truly understood the real value of the local currency. To pay for the purchase, the man without any hesitation placed a heavy pouch of coins on the counter. When the shopkeeper reacted fearfully, he involuntarily and calmly offered extra, not knowing that it was already too much. Only then did he realize one large gold coin could buy a pile of clothes. The man ordered every garment and every lining he could buy, confidently paying while the shopkeeper hurriedly prepared the change. Using shadow technique, he hid large bundles in the darkness under his feet, so they disappeared from sight. The confused clerk asked him, but he calmly explained, his shadow is a personal storage. Satisfied with the deal, the man adjusted his new cloak and left the shop with quiet pride. Stepping into the bustling imperial capital, he surveyed the noisy streets and the towering castle. Menes walked through the crowded streets while the townspeople celebrated the success of the uprising, unaware that the man they praised stood quietly among them. Posters about the death of the Demon Lord were proudly displayed, and he observed the joy over his supposed demise without any objection. Looking at the open sky, Mena tells himself, after abandoning the role of the final boss, he will embrace freedom. Fueled by curiosity, he approached the dining hall and confidently ordered a strawberry crepe from the surprised vendor. Tasting the unfamiliar dish for the first time, he thought this peaceful moment marked the true beginning of his new life. After trying the pancake, the man urgently calls the cook, and the vendor shudders at his sharp reaction. Tasting it, he praised the kitchen and boldly declared that he would buy another 100. Satisfied with his decision, Menace took it as the second big purchase of the day and felt relieved. Sharing the treats with his wolf companion, he calmly brushed off the strange disappearance of food into the shadow storage. Ignoring the seller's confusion and the crowd's concern, Menace generously paid for additional crepes and enjoyed his carefree freedom. From the noisy marketplace, the men learned. The hero had returned to the capital. He was greeted by a roaring crowd. When the streets exploded with cheers, he realized. His death, which apparently never happened, changed the course of events and gave the Soviet army a chance to survive. The citizens praised the army and especially Alexandra, crediting her with the end of the demon lord's reign. Standing on the decorated carriage, Alexandra gracefully waved. Her confident smile enchanted the people below. Quietly from behind the crowd, Menace watched her face and did not understand why the victory felt different from what he remembered. When Alexandra waved to the crowd, wildly greeting her with screams, Menace noticed a barely noticeable sadness hidden behind her composed smile. He turned away and tried to completely dismiss this feeling, but his attention sharpened as soon as he sensed something unusual nearby. Noticing a figure crouched near the clock tower, Menace realized an assassin was nearby, ready to strike at any moment. Considering the political consequences, he concluded that Alexandra was probably the target of the attack. While the celebration continued and Alexandra suspected nothing, the people were closely watched. They were on alert, ready to act even before the threat was revealed. Springing into action, he recognized in the flickering magical circle the sniper magic of long range, aiming directly at Alexandra. Assessing the threat, he understood. Her current strength would not be enough to withstand such a precise strike. Before the spell could hit, Minas intervened, pushing her aside and standing between her and the projectile. The untamed magic burst into the sky, and thanks to his intervention, it missed the target in time. The stunned crowd watched this. Near the parade, an explosion thundered, but the people stood firm while the waves scattered against his protection. Lowering his hood slightly, he absorbed the remaining magic with one hand, watching carefully to ensure the attack caused no harm. Evaluating the weak power behind the spell, he concluded that the killer lacked true skill. Becoming an irritating noise of obstacles, Menace looked at the attacker as a minor hindrance threatening the peaceful outcome he had managed to arrange. Calmly, he confirmed his choice. He decided to protect Alexandra, for he had already entrusted the Empire's future to her leadership. Menace covered his face and laughed quietly. He was angry that someone tried to cancel his decision by hitting Alexandra. Comparing the hood, he declared that the invisible attacker was finished, and his facial expression quickly became cold and merciless. A surge of pressure shook the surroundings, frightened the crowd, and for a moment twisted Alexandra. His power briefly burst out. Realizing the fuss he had caused, men climbed onto the cart and understood. He had attracted too much attention to himself. Suppressing his anxiety, he controlled his emotions and reaffirmed his decision to live freely, without destroying everything that comes his way. While tension hung over the parade, the wolf of Menhias released a mighty roar, and a winged creature flew into the sky. The animal rushed toward the clock tower. Its scream and the roaring wind covered the hidden killer. From the sudden attack, the attacker was knocked off his feet, staggered, and fell from his position. The threat was stopped immediately. When the danger was removed, he adjusted his hood and prepared to disappear unnoticed before attracting even more suspicion. Before he could leave, Alexandra stepped forward and stopped him, demanding to name the person of her mysterious savior, M. Menace notices the trembling expression on Alexandra's face and realizes she is very different from the version he remembers from the game. In his assessment, he sees her as inexperienced, weak, and unreliable. She lacks the endurance expected of a future ruler. Her weak, fragile way of thinking and lack of reliable allies make her vulnerable to immediate assassination. Memory reminds him, in the original story, she survives and will ascend to the throne of the Nohek Empire. The guards rushed forward to protect her, but Mena understands. Without intervention, her fate will never reach that same doomed outcome. Menestit's Alexandra quietly wishes her luck, recognizing her as the true heroine of this story. Confusion floods her eyes as she struggles to comprehend his sudden support and strange behavior. He reasons, despite her weakness and inexperience, she is destined to become emperor. Unlike him, she is kind, just, and loved by the people, the embodiment of everything he cannot be. Acknowledging the role of the villain, Mena says he knows only one thing: to rule by fear, because he is unable to protect the empire as its ruler. Mena releases Alexandra's shoulder and turns away, entrusting the future of the empire to her as a dark mist gathers around him. The soldiers quickly surround the carriage, raise their weapons, and block all escape routes to prevent him from leaving. Unyielding, he steps forward and exerts colossal pressure, forcing the guards to lower their gaze. With one motion, he releases magic. It strikes the ground, scattering the soldiers and breaking their formation. After he clears a path for himself, the man calmly lets them go and disappears, leaving only confusion on the trembling streets. Somewhere high above the city, Menes flees with a winged wolf while soldiers below prowl the streets. Just after landing, he quickly confirms that Alexandra must remain safe from the nearest threats. Before leaving, he secretly hides the mighty Shadow Knight in her shadow to guard against future danger. Outside the walls of the capital, he looks down on the empire and is sure no reproaches remain behind. Although Menu was expelled from his hometown, when he turns away from it, he feels the burden lift from his shoulders. Menes rises above the clouds, feeling true freedom for the first time since leaving his former role. Among giant mountains and dense forests, he urges his winged companion forward, moving further away from the capital. Not knowing what will come next, he decides to consider this world his game and face whatever comes. With new determination, Menes embraces his new start, ready to challenge fate on his own terms. Somewhere high above the forest clearing, a threat approaches calmly and controlled. Wings spread and he surveys the lands below. After landing, the fair-haired former emperor gently praises his faithful beast companion, acknowledging its efforts as it silently rushes through the sky. Soon he reaches the magical cannibal forest on the northern edge of the Empire of Noah. Here are many dangerous creatures and hidden threats. Seeking a peaceful existence, Menes declares a desire for a slow life away from power and endless conflicts. Memories of ruling from childhood remind him of constant vigilance. Mina cheerfully tills the soil in front of her little house, imagining a quiet life without politics and imperial burden. Since few people enter the dangerous forest, he believes he can calmly build a second home there and begins planning a proper base. Later, he activates powerful black magic, forming a huge circle of gravity spell on the ground. Under her power, the surrounding earth contracts and flattens, instantly transformed by merciless force. When the spell ends, a solid foundation remains, proof that even in the search for peace. The threat reveals a thick grimoire containing records of every monster he has ever defeated or created. With a spell he calls the Werewolf House, he shapes it from magic and the frame grows right before him. A strange dwelling, Friesa living house capable of devouring strangers, yet obedient to its creator. Having entered inside, he examines the furnished interior and considers how practical it is for daily life. Too cramped for comfortable lounging, Mina decides to strengthen Mimic House to better fit his calm second life. Mina reviews the principles of demonic creation, recalling that this skill allows both summoning demons and merging them into stronger forms. Deciding to improve his dwelling, he initiates synthesis, combining two imitation buildings with precise magical control. Dark energy gathers and spins outward, engulfing the small structure as the merging process reformats its body. In the dense shadows, a giant figure rises, soaring higher and higher above the clearing as he calmly watches. When the magic settles, a ready shape-shifting mansion stands, spacious and obedient. The threat uses demonic creation to produce magical ingredients for tea, summoning special leaves and sweet spores from created creatures. Having gathered the materials, he carefully brews the tea himself, combining the ingredients with practical precision. Later, he relaxes inside the elegant mansion's living room, comfortably settled by the fireplace next to his faithful companion, Sint. He drinks the warm beverage and savors every sip, finally achieving that quiet, easy life he once dreamed of and now just thinks about it. As the silence stretches longer and longer, feudal leisure displaces former worries, and he remains alone with nothing but peace and his own thoughts. After achieving peace, Mina settles into the armchair. The quiet mansion turns out to be not as pleasant as he had imagined. Even without responsibility, he still cannot relax. He does not know how to spend time after constant ambition and conflict. He quickly drives away distractions that are too strong. Eventually, the silence becomes unbearable, and boredom displaces the excitement he once thought slow life would bring. Finally stopping, Menes concludes that he cannot endure such emptiness and decides to continue searching for a path that will be more interesting. On the first day of his slow life journey, the man leaves the estate and decides that silence and peace no longer suit him. He sets off to a neighboring town and under a new identity submits documents for registration in the Adventurers Guild. While the receptionist reviews the documents, he waits calmly, confident in the profile he invented himself. He claims to be a 20-year-old demon user. He anticipates battles and distant travels. Despite doubts, Mina does not back down, remains determined, and chooses adventure over boredom. Menes insists that his documents are genuine and shows his demon assistant as proof of his declared profession. The receptionist is distracted by the fluffy creature, admires its safe, seemingly harmless appearance instead of sensing danger. Gathering her thoughts, she explains, the papers themselves are acceptable, but she doubts the profession of demon user. Spraying his glasses, she says directly, the role has a bad reputation among travelers. She clarifies that low-level demons are considered weak and burdensome, and from this the threat silently fades, stunned and disheartened. When the receptionist names the famous demon Lord Menace, he awkwardly agrees and at the same time feigns admiration for that terrifying figure. She explains that demon users are mostly not trusted because they remind people of that well-known ruler. Barely laughing, she predicts little future for such a profession, yet still registers him as a G-rank apprentice. Next comes another piece of advice, to join a friendly party for beginners for safety and proper mentorship. After reviewing the proposed trio, Men immediately rejects them, deciding that they have nothing useful for him. Scanning the guild hall, Men is repelled by most adventurers, calling them ordinary, and decides to look for someone with a rare ability. A whisper about a group heading to the cannibal forest sticks in his ear and makes him look more closely. Suddenly he notices a well-known elven traveler and openly shudders at her unexpected presence. Without hesitation, he shouts her name, breaking the silence, making her flinch and drawing the attention of everyone nearby. Excitement overwhelms him as soon as he recognizes her. He is convinced meeting her will make this new life much more interesting. Seeing her restrained behavior, Mina recalls the beginning of the story and notes how much she resembles that same early version. Examining her equipment and face, he is convinced she is Michael and Pinkheart, one of the key figures of Regis. NOAA. Remembering her adaptability and future power, he sees potential in her despite her current inexperience. Excitement overwhelms him as soon as he imagines seeing her rise with his own eyes. Without any hesitation, Mina declares that he will join her adventure. Convinced, fate created this opportunity. Mina casually calls her by a playful nickname. This confuses and irritates the elf, while the glances of surrounding adventurers gather nearby. Embarrassed and humiliated, she loudly protests against the strange familiarity, unable to hide her growing excitement. Despite her reaction, Menace analyzes her character and recalls hidden traits that others do not notice. The receptionist quickly intervenes, defending Miken's status as a skilled veteran adventurer of rank C. Hearing her level and the threat becomes increasingly calculated, understanding that such power is extremely high in such an early zone. Makoran firmly states that she must become stronger and refuses to waste time leading inexperienced travelers. Before she could continue, the man sharply silences her, dismissing her words as if they were unnecessary. When the reception manager asks again what exactly he called her a minute ago, the confusion quickly dissipates. Menace calmly insists that he called her by her real name and corrects everyone who misunderstood him. Relying on the guild register, he states her real name and unnerves Makoran, forcing her to reconsider her decision. Eventually, under the pressure of his persistence, Makoran suddenly agrees to assemble a team with Menace, and this shocks everyone in the guild hall. The announcement quickly spreads, and this marks the true start of his first day as an adventurer. Outside the city, she clarifies that he is only an apprentice to her and not an official partner. She accepts the condition without any complaints. The Menace follows her into the cannibal forest. As soon as she is inside, she stops and demands to know where he got her real name from. She has cornered him with her demands. Menace freezes. He understands that any incredible excuse will only increase her suspicion. Under pressure, he admits himself. Sometimes it is safer to tell the truth at least partially than to keep brushing off with vague answers. Calmly, he utters her full name, and by this reveals knowledge that instantly throws her off balance. Then he reveals her royal origin and the dispute that forced her to leave home. Finally, he reveals precise personal details and abilities, and Makoran freezes. She is struck by how perfectly he knows everything about her. The threat does not subside. He lists her private preferences and hidden dreams. He speaks so casually that her composure begins to crack. He freezes, embarrassed by her growing pain, while she tries to understand how well he really knows everything. Embarrassed, Makoran demands to know where he got such intimate details about her body and capabilities. When he insists that this information is from the guidebook, she realizes even confidential things were somehow noted down as well. Deciding that he knows something about the path, he was mistaken and took it as an attempt to lead her home. She firmly states that she has no intention of returning. Asked what he truly wants, Men calmly answers that he is only looking for something to enjoy after final retirement. He clarifies that traveling itself is just a hobby, not a great dream tied to any kingdom. Barely smiling, he says that for some time he wants to train under Makoran's guidance. Respectfully calling her elder, he quietly and confidently asks for her advice. Embarrassed but determined, Makoran agrees to continue training, solemnly promising to uncover his true self. Makoran reluctantly accepts him as a pupil, promising to take care of him, although his confidence annoys her. While she doubts his sanity, Mina remains calm and attentively watches the forest with quiet curiosity. She explains their goal is to gather healing herbs, not to get involved in unnecessary fights. Provoking a reckless fight, he immediately receives a reprimand. She emphasizes, one must conserve strength and resources. Comparing his idea to the hero's foolish habit, she firmly reminds him, thoughtless fights only waste time and energy. While Mina was gathering herbs, he casually asks about leveling up, and Mikorin remains completely confused by the strange term. She explains that strength grows when you defeat monsters and train persistently, and expresses surprise that he does not know this. Continuing the questioning, he ponders how shared experience works and how non-combat roles also gain progress. Thinking aloud, he compares it to a game system and concludes, constant fights turn out to be more effective. Makoran firmly rejects reckless fighting and orders him to avoid unnecessary skirmishes in the forest. Menace solemnly introduces his little demon companion and assures that the creature is much more capable than it seems. Makoran dismisses the acquaintance's uselessness and urges him to stay alert as they approach the place where the herb grows. Walking along, he casually recalls that the target plant grows only in bright areas of magical forests. She confidently points forward, asserting that the herbs are nearby and easy to recognize. A moment later, both freeze in shock. Before them. In the clearing appears something they did not expect. In the forest clearing, a strange structure suddenly emerges. Both travelers freeze, stunned as they stare at the unfamiliar building growing right before them. A closer look revealed a strange mansion that definitely was not there yesterday. This only fueled their suspicion and confusion even more. The feeling comes to the young man as soon as he recognizes in this imitation house a true mimic locality. Next to the mountains stands a remote mansion. Its outlines are distorted and a heavy presence spreads over the entire region. Menes and his companions freeze. They feel that their place was discovered much earlier than they had expected. He carelessly stepped on the sacred grass and regrets building the residence next to the monster, in a completely dead, people-filled city. Thick mana gathers around them, heavily pressing on their bodies and disrupting their breathing. The realization hits when Mina understands. The mansion itself emits an overwhelmingly powerful magical energy. That colossal feeling of mana seems unnatural, so they suspect that a powerful demon has settled in the forest. Calmly, Menes recalls how he released huge amounts of magic, relaxing in his mansion without holding back. Realizing this, his companion catches a terrifying thought. One of the 7 demon lords might be nearby. The shadows of the 7 demon lords emerge, beings capable of creating such a dreadful phenomenon. Minas reacts clumsily when the group realizes any of those lords has enough power to erase an entire nation with a single move. Confusion spreads as they begin to argue about the rank of the 7 demon lords and the very existence of a higher classification. Uncertainty grows as the ranking system appears inconsistent, leaving them without a clear explanation. Turning toward the distant city of Arsh, they immediately understand. If there is a demon lord there, the city is in danger right now. Fear deepens as the thought arises that the 7 demon lords seek revenge after the reported death of Menace. The threat grows in their minds and they conclude, if their suspicions prove true, all humanity could suffer. Menace admits that the estate through which this commotion occurred belongs to him, realizing that his carelessness led to a serious misunderstanding. The companion immediately decides to cancel the training and insists that the incident be reported to the guild at once. Before they could leave, a gigantic tree-like monster rises before them, blocking their path with its overwhelming presence. Shock spreads as they recognize the creature. It should not appear outside its environment, and the crisis only deepens. The monster suddenly attacks, forcing Menes to break free from the spot while his companion shouts in alarm. The threat quickly grabs its companion and flees from the tree monster, rushing to attack, as debris scatters in all directions after its furious, bloody assault. Noticing the distorted behavior, he concludes, the creature has lost control and no longer acts as usual. He recalls that sugar mush spores can cause psychological disorders, especially when monsters are affected. Such infected creatures become rabid and begin to relentlessly attack any people nearby. Taking responsibility, Menes decides there is no alternative and prepares to destroy the raging monster. Massive Trent towers loomed before them, and his companion stubbornly insisted, an ordinary person cannot defeat a rank C monster. Minas remains calm and brushes off the creature as a trifle, although she still does not believe it. She insists that only those above level 20 can handle such a threat, and that such people are extremely rare. At that moment, Menes begins to doubt his assumptions about the strength of people in this world. Next to the mad tree, bodies fallen to the ground show. Humanity here is much weaker than he initially expected. His companion explains, in this world, people rarely hunt demons and do not understand how to effectively increase their power. Menace reflects that, unlike the game where demons were everywhere, here encounters are rare because of this. Human growth is restrained. Remembering how key figures started at higher levels with proper preparation, he begins to feel the difference. He quietly calls her attention, preparing to clarify the situation. Facing Trent and the sword plants stuck around, they admit, the level is below 20 and victory is unlikely. Deciding to protect him, she steps forward and prepares to hold back the monsters with her magic. She believes both will die if nothing changes, so she decides at least one must survive. With a calm threat, she refuses her plan without any fear, while he slowly evaluates the dragging trend. He explains that her sacrifice will change nothing and quietly prepares to act alone. Together to confront the giant monster, he stands confidently ready to take the threat upon himself. She decides to protect the threat, takes responsibility for their alliance, and does not allow him to face the danger alone. Anxiety tightens her movements. She orders him to run and at the same time prepares her magic. Raising her staff, she builds a barrier of lightning. A radiant wall flashes between them, and a charging rush. A massive creature crashes into the barrier with a rumble. A crack stretches across the light shield, torn apart by colossal force. Despite the tension, it holds the spell, clenching tightly as shards scatter in different directions after a harsh blow. Like a lightning barrier of the Trent storm, it twitches and cracks, and she tries to understand how this creature can have such incredible strength at all. Before the shield collapses, Mina rushes into the fight and covers her, preventing her confident position from turning deadly. With one move, he stops the monster's devastating attack. Calmly observing, he thinks, many people rush into danger, although they lack the strength to withstand stronger enemies. She stares intently at his hand, which does not move and cannot believe. He blocked the strike with a force far greater than she expected. She angrily questions why the men refuse to flee and cannot comprehend his decision to stay despite such danger. Holding her little companion close, she watches as he declares that retreat in his view is equivalent to defeat. Turning back to the frenzied trend, he states, a creature attacking its creator must be corrected. A dark confidence settles on him as he takes responsibility and asserts that the final boss never loses. Ignoring her warning, Menas moves forward alone and prepares to unleash the power that removes all his limitations. Menas narrows his eyes, and on his face, instead of the usual calmness, a sharp, vigilant concentration appears. Activating the freezing ability, he firmly shackled the furious Trent, instantly stopping his movement. A mighty tree freezes before him. His attack hangs in the air as if time itself has stopped. He reveals that the technique originates from a demonic skill capable of immobilizing the enemy for a short time. He breaks the seal that restrains his demonic powers. The threat begins to merge his body with skills drawn from other demons. Dark energy gathers around Mina as he decides to put an end to the battle note, fully releasing his second form. He calls for the removal of restrictions. He summons the Black Reaper, composed of demonic power. The weapon carries the Reaper's ability. It pierces through flesh and cuts straight to the soul. Although the technique rarely works, Trent's frozen state guarantees the strike will hit. With a single sweeping motion, the threat slashes the monster and death immediately becomes the verdict, so the fight ends instantly. After the decisive blow, Trent Calypseshi's gigantic body torn in half, and the fragments scatter across the forest floor. She is struck with shock when she realizes the ranked sea monster fell from a single blow. While the relief has not yet settled, the surrounding sword plants rush forward whining when suddenly they start a counterattack. Menace calmly calls Glacia, summoning the subordinate to take on the rest of the threats. The great wolf descends and crashes into the pack itself, crushing the plants with its paws and instantly breaking the ambush. After the wolf crushes the remaining plants, Menace indifferently praises his summoner while she stands, petrified with disbelief. Shock overwhelms her as she questions how he and this little creature can have such incredible power. Mena awkwardly tries to calm her, realizing that he may have accidentally shown much more strength than he intended. Before he can explain further, the trees around begin to tremble, and an unnatural pressure spreads through the forest. Leaves scatter to the sides and strike in waves as the forest responds again to her movements, forcing her to freeze in panic and look around at the new commotion. A fierce burst of power explodes in the forest, making her scream, while the ground and air rise and crack around. A giant wave of mana bursts outward, and just as she loses consciousness, the threat instantly catches up to her. Noticing that this power could have blown her mind apart, he realizes the fainting might have saved her. Silently and grimly, he suspects Something powerful sensed the surge of his mana. The forest trembles under increasing pressure, and it comes to the conclusion, a much greater threat is rapidly approaching. A suffocating presence rolls through the forest, and Mina senses the approach of a force incomparably more powerful than all previous monsters. Carrying Mikoran in his arms, he urges an immediate retreat because he understands. Staying means inviting disaster. Before they could break free, steep vines rise from the ground, deliberately climbing, entwining everything circle by circle. The creeping plants spiral wildly, tightening to form a living column that blocks their path with. Amid the dense tangle of grapevine appears a mysterious figure with horns calmly restrained, but obviously the one who caused the commotion. The horned figure lifts its head from the coils of vines, finally recognizing the presence of Menace. Kneeling respectfully before him, the mysterious creature greeted its lord, while Menace remained alert and protectively held Mikoran. Mina's once for your demon king now walked freely, and very soon he encountered a familiar presence. In the forest, Abido politely knelt, reporting on his patrols of lands that once belonged to Mina's. Mina tried to smile but panicked inside. Abido's appearance shattered his calm, false plan of death. Abido V of the 7 demon princes remained loyal. Mina's regretted pretending to be dead. Born of the world tree, Abaitoa commanded the armies of nature. His SS rank power had no rivals in Risnoa. Abido unnoticedly looked at how Mina stood next to the girl, and asked why he found himself in such company. Mina flinched fearfully when Abido stared at her. They caught him just like that, and his calm retiree's haze shattered. Mina's began to explain everything, but Abido did not understand him. They decided that his master had gone on the path of noble purification before the conquest. Abido appreciated Minato for choosing pure souls, and offered superhuman support to cleanse the world. Mina's regretted calling Abido, yet still greatly revered him as a god despite Mina's having left command. Mina's quickly stopped Abido's bloody proposal, and tried to explain that he had come for completely different reasons. With a forced smile, Mines announced his resignation. He officially renounced the title of emperor. Abido froze in shocked stupor, so much loyalty and effort, and the master simply said, I am running away. Mina's called the resistance a rebellion, and admitted that he thought resigning might be the best decision. As soon as Abido heard this, his mood darkened. The laughter concealed something deeper behind the trees. Something was stirring. Furious, Abaitoa declared revenge on the rebellious people, vowing to punish them without hesitation. Mina's understood. Abido's anger risks more than just one rebellion. It could destroy all humanity completely. With Abaitoa's plant skills, he could destroy ecosystems and spread diseases, becoming the most effective weapon of extinction. Mina's knew ordinary people would not survive Abido's fury. They would be mercilessly exterminated, just as he threatened. Frightened, Mina tried to calm Abaitoa, blaming stress and curiosity for his leaving the imperial throne. Abido rages, unleashing deadly vines and swearing to destroy anyone who threatens his beloved former emperor. The roots trembled wildly and surged forward. Mina's valued loyalty, but devastation only made everything worse. Realizing it could not continue like this, Mina's exercised command authority over Abido and ordered him to stop. When Abido was struck by Rose's attack, the divine command from his summoner instantly overrode his instincts. Mina's clarified his position. He left the throne but did not relinquish ownership, and although the Noah Empire was still under threat, Mina's reminded Abido that rebellion is natural. His new order allowed people to live peacefully. Abido fell silent when he heard his master's words, slowly tamed his power and lowered his defiant stance. Reluctantly, Abido accepted the order. Devainsa retreated, forcibly calmed, and the war was stopped for a while. With a sigh, Mina's recalled. Once he feared the Demon King, but now he negotiates the survival of humanity as its protector. Confused, Abido inquired what his master would do next, not understanding where the former ruler was leading. Mina's had no clear plan, but he was sure he longed to be free. Abido asked about defensive strategies and was proud of his loyal patrols that kept the empire's borders safe. Mina's realized renouncing rule does not mean renouncing responsibility. Noah's safety still weighed incredibly heavily on him. He feared that Alex would become a target if it became known again to whom the prince had sworn allegiance. Mina's ordered Abido to secretly protect the empire. Now the demonic princes would work in the shadows. Abido gladly accepted the order. He believed that humans could not handle responsibility without divine oversight. Mina's smiled, calmed by Abido's obedience, and trusted him. So only this way was hidden protective support for Noah possible. Mina's considered a fourth place for Primo. Abido III relayed the orders or the meeting distance. Abido confirmed, Primo, Lord of Ruin, a destroyer but loyal, he could become a valuable ally. Primo's unique ability provided instant communication with all demonic princes, an ideal messenger for secret orders. Albedo explained Primo's role. She created a communication network for spreading defensive intelligence throughout the empire. Minas realized that he was not taken into account, although he smiled, and yet he wondered whether he was deliberately excluded. Albedo warned, if you remain involved, freedom will be limited, so Minato must hide to act freely. Albedo swore allegiance again, promised support from the shadows, and vowed to destroy any threats. With a malicious smile, Albedo proposed a new idea. Minato should secretly rule from the shadows. Minas considered Albedo's proposal, despite being attracted to the shadows, and destruction was not part of his plans. While Minas hesitated, the girl next to him moved slowly, coming out of unconsciousness. Still dreaming, she whispered to her mother, clearly restrained by trauma. Minato could not understand what it meant. Minas spoke reassuringly, assuring that the danger had passed, but he needed a little more time to cover his tracks. Before falling asleep again, the girl whispered, "Thank you," leaving Mina surprised and completely speechless. Minas watched her carefully. So much had changed, yet she still breathed calmly. When dawn broke, Mina reconsidered Albedo's proposal, and, as if from the shadows, it suddenly seemed strangely attractive to her. Renouncing the role of the final boss left uncertainty. The world spun in a spiral without a guiding hand. Even behind the scenes, if he could direct fate, maybe everything wouldn't have completely fallen apart. Just as he changed his fate, Minas now believed she could change others as well. The protagonist recovers, decides to pick up the game, and prepares to clean up everything to the last detail. He finds a sugar shroom that uncontrollably releases spores, and it stirs his curiosity while he quietly thinks something over. Excitedly, he looks around at Albedo, hinting at a plan based on the unusual properties of the mushroom. Holding the mushroom, he asks Albedo to grow Molly, a rare magical component for plants. Quickly responding, Albedo used his powers and summoned a field of blooming Molly flowers. The villagers were stunned by the sudden lush blooming of high-quality Molly in the fields. Officials inspected the flowers and confirmed the harvest was exceptional, significantly higher than the figures of any previous year. Despite the miracle, one elf noticed something wrong. There were no traces of pests anywhere and no signs of spoilage. She reported one sugar shroom wandering near the place, but nothing else seemed strange to her. Secretly smiling, the boy knew. He had arranged everything perfectly so that no one would suspect and he could calmly achieve peace. To avoid arousing suspicion, he destroyed all the evidence and blamed everything on the influence of sugar mushrooms, saying it was hallucinations. With the power of Albedo, he quickly grew bushes of Molly to cover the damage he himself had caused. They restored the forest, neutralized the residual meat slime, and ensured that no trace of destruction remained. Miko Rin woke up confused. Everything looked usual, but instincts whispered that something strange had happened here. Her keen gaze fixed on him. Even despite his denials, she knew he was hiding something. She asked why she had fainted. Suspecting that his immunity meant something, he decided he knew about something suspicious. Recalling her delirious appearance, she admitted that he had looked strangely heroic and capable all the time. Blushing, she quietly muttered that he looked too stately and immediately caught herself mid-word, right in the middle of H. Thought he froze in shock upon hearing her indirect compliment, and she exhaled gas, realizing what she had just said. She got scared and lunged at him, choking on denial and demanding that he stop mocking her reaction. Panic covered the village. The residents reported that the Shell Kingdom was advancing from the east, and everyone was caught off guard. He waved it off without any worry, while others panicked due to the threat looming near their border. When Minas was considered dead, the enemies saw that the empire was vulnerable. Its defense was critically weakened. The Empress remained busy in Gopher, causing the military organization to be delayed, and the territory remained unprotected. Realizing that there was no defense in their city, Miko Rin trembled, believing that they could not avoid the fall. He calmed them with a smile. The 7 Lords of Demons still lurked at the borders of the Empire. Yet he understood, their anxious calm was fragile and the original plotline no longer fit. Without the threat of the Demon King, his former restraining factor, the balance of power was disturbed and war could break out at any moment. Seeing the chaos, he laughed bitterly. Freedom is not easy when the whole world is hunting you. Narrowing his eyes and restoring determination, he decided to act like a shadow quietly in the darkness. Entwined with a vine, his gaze is full of heaviness and submission. His voice is quiet, loyalty unshakable, despite the absence of his master. He remembered the sudden abdication. There was no time for farewell, only quiet confusion. But now, seeing Minas smile freely, he admitted, the former emperor truly looks happier. Minas casually called to the reception, and Ophir silently watched with interest how his former master was entertaining himself. When asked about the enemy's movement, the frightened receptionist revealed, "The kingdom of snails has advanced alarmingly far into the country." Having studied the approach of the kingdom of snails, Menes rolled up to the bottomless flats and decided to visit the fourth seat primo. While others were rushing to evacuate, Mina flew forward alone, ignoring their screams and the confusion below. Minas flew over the jagged mountains on a divine creature, heading towards the chaotic, bottomless plains. Explosions shook the battlefield. Enemy forces were streaming into the area under continuous magical bombardment. General Zoe realized that their defensive lines were cracking under the pressure of superior numbers, preparation, and unexpected magical power. Their soldiers were supposed to be low-level, but their firepower equaled that of an elite squad. Something did not add up here. Zoe concluded that this army was secretly being prepared. The invasion had been planned long before this day. Zoe suspects a traitor among her own. Detailed plans indicate that before the coup, someone had inside information. Enemy magic strikes like lightning. Flickering barriers crack and shockwaves explode along the defensive front lines. Spells break through the barrier. Frightened soldiers report that the frontline magic is breaking through their last line of defense. When the Mayanid was exhausted and there were no reinforcements, Zoil clenches his fist and realizes that a retreat may be necessary. He orders the main forces to retreat and regroup, ignoring warnings about their own safety. General Zoil draws his blade and alone rushes headlong forward, distracting the enemy's vanguard. He shouts to the others to flee, while he rushes into the magical barrier which cracks and crumbles. He seems to be on the edge, but remembers their trust at level 21 and still has a significant advantage in battle. Arrows fly at him endlessly. In despair, he searches for anything that could shift this fight. Beyond everything, a mysterious figure calls the Black Armored Knights, silently watching as the balance on the battlefield is about to shift. Zoe recalls how the Demon Lord Menace was terrifying everywhere and no one could match him. Who else could so easily shatter this attack? With pain in his heart, Zoil mourns that such incredible power vanished along with the supposed death of Menace. Suddenly, the cavalry returns to him. Loyal soldiers disobey orders and refuse to abandon their general. They swear to share his burden, insisting that unity can hold back the enemy's advance even longer. Zoil, choked with emotion, accepts their resolve and prepares to charge into attack with them hearts burning with defiance. Zoil leads the attack with defiant resolve, gathering his knights for the final defense. He drives away doubts, remembering, thousands of lives still depend on his unbreakable protection. Naming his name, Zoil releases a powerful taunt skill, drawing the enemy's attention to himself. The enemy shock archers raise their bows, responding to his battle cry with synchronized glances and drawn strings. Arrows rain down on Zoil's squad. He intermittently tightens his defense, diverting any attention from anything else. All must remain on their hostage. They decide to lure the enemy into a siege and hold out until Empress Alexandra's reinforcements arrive. Though doomed, Zoil still charges forward, buying valuable moments for retreat with a sacrificial strike from his unit. Fearlessly, with unwavering confidence, they shouted their defiance, ready to die to delay the inevitable assault. A cloaked man raises his hand and casts high-level dark magic, neutralizing it with power to erase the incoming attack. Suddenly, all arrows vanish into the air with a poof, and Zoil's group suffers no damage. Enemy mages panic as their spells fail. Confusion spreads and the frontline freezes in indecision, not knowing how to respond. A winged figure descends from the sky, shining with threatening light. Zoil freezes in shock, not believing his own eyes. A mysterious man in a cloak calmly floats down. Soldiers freeze, recognizing a power beyond comprehension. With a twisted smile, the man fixes his gaze on Zoil, and fear ignites in his heart. When chaos erupts, the cloaked figure proclaims, "Limit break," preparing to unleash a devastating magical force. Above his incredible complexity, a colossal magic circle flares, one beyond understanding, woven from myths and legends. The figure hidden in the cloak raises his hand, summoning legendary earth magic of the 10th level before the stunned soldiers. With a malicious smile, he casts Earthbreaker and giant rocks burst from the ground. Soldiers scream as the earth violently tears apart. Heavy tremors spread chaos. A wave of destruction swallows everything without exception. A blinding strike tears through the battlefield. Bodies fall and only one rider still stands upright. In a pile of ruins and dust, Zoil wakes with relief. Nearby survivors barely cling to the light. Approaching vast crater, he was stunned by the scale of magical devastation. Zoil whispers in complete disbelief. It all happened because of one man. He unleashed only one impossible spell. He questions the truth. 10th level magic should be a myth, yet its divine power was undeniable. Staring into the void, Zoil aloud wonders, was that man in the cloak really a god? Having reshaped the land, Menes surveyed his work, a defensive trench molded after the glacier model. Satisfied with the result, Menes left the battlefield and, mounting a winged creature, set off in search of Primo. Later, legends exalted Zoil's resilience. He was called a blessing granted for surviving the devastating magical power. She appeared friendly, hiding her anxiety, and before them stretched an endless barren land. Riding his beast, the traveler recalled the fallen kingdom torn apart by tragedy 10 years ago. The silence of the wasteland spoke for itself. The ruins consumed, the remains erased by Primo, whom Lord Ruin fears. Clenching his will, he surged higher, calling radar, and desperately scoured for that same mysterious presence of the missing subordinate. Despite efforts, her dim mana slipped from sight even with his Aculagan skills. She was unrecognizable. From afar, an army approached. The beast noticed it first and its master raised his gaze. The girl stood before the soldiers, a confused whisper spreading among them as she nervously counted aloud, stumbling. Trembling but resolute, she declared the border line and warned them to halt the advance. Without hesitation, the soldiers released arrows. She screamed, confused by the sudden, painful hit. Her body thudded against the ground. The soldiers confirmed the target was neutralized, but still did not understand her actions. Despite mortal wounds, Primo stood up unharmed. The human form burned away and a frightening resilience burst forth. The soldiers panicked. The true nature of Primo was revealed. The fourth demon lord, ancestor of slugs, lord of ruin. Her flowing body surged like proto-slime, so she could effortlessly mimic any living form. Fully restored, she smiled gently, but fear gripped the soldiers. They did not know who stood before them, girl or monster. They acted recklessly. Primo gathered herself, but her heart clenched with sorrow. They ignored all the warnings she desperately tried to convey. Primo's body twisted and mucus tentacles appeared, stretching out as blades behind her back. With one swift movement, her limbs struck effortlessly, vaporizing several armored soldiers on contact. The survivors froze in shock, gasping at the sight of the splashes. Panic surged like a wave. No one dared approach her anymore. Primo puffed her cheeks in confusion. She could not understand why everyone suddenly fled, screaming in terror. To prove her innocence, she triggered a harmless explosion and accidentally destroyed half the battlefield. Soldiers fled in panic, but the ray of destruction corroded everything even before they managed to escape. From above, he recognized the ray, the light of Primo, which evaporates everything it touches. The destruction was devastating. The ray of decay Primo cut through the canyon. Mercy was never her strong suit. Yet deep inside, Primo was gentle, a calm, peaceful demon who hated conflicts, born from cunning. But when silence and peace begin to be threatened, she acts decisively. Without hesitation, she destroys those who dared to disturb them. She smiled cheerfully, satisfied. The battlefield emptied, peace returned, hence the name Lord of Ruin. It was then that her master arrived. His voice praised her efforts and Primo pleasantly lost her rhythm. She immediately rushed at him with joy, shouted his name and her beloved Gu. She cuddled up to him like a little animal, filled with boundless joy from reunion after such a long separation. He remembered everything. Primo was the first demon he summoned 15 years ago. Primo sensed him from afar. Instincts did not fail, it was her favorite master. Embarrassed, she apologized for the destruction and prepared her squad Mina Primo for cleanup. And so, joyfully, she lifted her dress. Dozens of tiny slugs plopped onto the floor ready to follow orders. They quickly darted forward, skillfully clearing the bodies. At first glance, Mina Primo's is an amazingly efficient disposal unit that inspired fear with its precision. Primo slightly tilted her head, curious. His visit was rare, that meant something serious had brought him here. He announced that he would renounce the Empire, and the sharp, radical decision left Primo stunned. Embarrassed, she asked why he had so easily abandoned the throne. He only replied, "I am tired." He reassured her again that he had chosen freedom, and now he needed her by his side. Overflowing with joy, Primo promised to help him in everything. Her heart was filled with true happiness. The conversation abruptly changed. He mentioned the network of the Demon Prince. Primo still knew nothing about this. No news had come from Ophir yet. Persho admitted that she had muted Ophir. She was ashamed, and because of that she missed the network messages. He gently insisted that she unmute the sound, contact Ophir, and convey his resignation to all 7 demon princes. Mina Primo playfully teased her and she agreed, promised she would not eat anyone at least today. Primo delivered the secret message. The emperor abdicated the throne but guarded the empire silently. With joyful pride she announced that everything was ready. The Minislamic confirmed delivery with a cheerful beep-beep signal. Mina Primo instantly spreads messages from one consciousness and immediately transmits them to all demonic princes through the connected consciousness. The scorched Ophi rushed into a fierce response. He was already face to face, angrily confronting Primo because he had been ignored for so long. While I was about to respond, the message amusingly distorted. Primo casually explained that the communication system has an unexpectedly wide range of applications. With joy, she confirmed that she would stay with her master and care for him forever. Her eyes flickered with satisfaction. Nothing pleased her more than simply being near him. Primo was the first to ask the last question: what will happen to the local defense if she leaves? She noted the recent aggression of the Snail Kingdom, although its deep trenches should hold them back. He reshaped the terrain and cliffs so that invasions ran into solid debris except for a few narrow roads that remained untouched. Yet he was concerned about the balance of the world. The Alex Empire wavered even under the pressure of minor threats. Mounting his beast, he smiled mysteriously and told Primo that it was time to move on. He confidently took off and declared that their enemies were finished. Primo silently watched, feeling a powerful rupture about to begin. The kingdom of the great fat snail stood proudly, not yet knowing that its fate was about to change sharply overnight. Celebrating fake news, the king raised his glass, confident that the resistance had completely defeated the demon Lord Manus. Greedy nobles secretly gathered to conspire and exploit the chaos, expanding their power over the Noah Empire. One merchant arrogantly boasted, revealing his strategy: wealth feeds armies, armies conquer, and taxes maintain the power of the Titans. Drunk with greed, he proclaimed himself untouchable, already dreaming of extracting all the power from Noah through taxes. Confident in their secrecy, the nobility mocked the people, blaming them for everything and not admitting that they caused their own suffering without any effort. Suddenly, a loud laugh exploded and two men shuddered, as their private conspiracy was seen or perhaps heard by an unknown stranger. A shadow appeared above them, accusing them of theft and manipulation, hiding behind politics. In a dramatic exit, a masked figure revealed themselves: the elusive phantom thief Nemesis. Standing on equal footing, Nemesis declared their true mission: to steal treasures, justice, and fear from the corrupt elite. Nemesis boldly headed for the palace, confirming that its vaults held wealth ready to be stolen. Despite being publicly praised for generosity, the Snail King secretly ruled both kingdoms, pursuing his own financial gain. Nemesis did not remain silent, framing the actions of Noah Menges, who revered the demon Lord Manus, and provoking a deadly response. Announcing the verdict, Nemesis swore to strip the palace bare, to punish corruption with swift theatrical justice. Unwavering, and a call from the Snail King rang out, summoning the elite guard to catch the brazen thief. The Snail King ordered the elite guard to attack and shouted to kill Nemesis. Nemesis calmly stood above, dodging spells while beginning the appropriate 8th-level dark magic cast. Activating his spell, Nemesis tore through the force field and instantly neutralized all enemy magic around. Stunned and powerless, the nobility panicked in a frenzy while Nemesis mocked their futile attempts, smirking sideways. Realizing this above the Moon Palace, Nemesis showed that the phantom thieves were completely immune to magical attacks. The king mocked Nemesis, insisting that one man could not break through the palace defenses alone. Nemesis smiled, and in response reinforcements thundered a hint that he never said he acted alone. Suddenly slime seeped through the ceilings, shocking everyone, and at that moment an unknown ally appeared. A soldier shouted that some strange maid had melted the walls and destroyed the entire palace treasury. The otherworldly maid appeared, laughing wildly, and declared that she would destroy the royal day without a trace. The phantom thief mask appeared proudly, and she announced, "Everything that doesn't fit in the bag, she devours." The panicky Snail King lunged at her, shouting for her to give back his money and accusing other kingdoms. He desperately claimed that the resistance members had robbed Noah's storages, insisting that he was not the only greedy one. Nemesis calmly interrupted him, scolding him for shamelessly using Noah as a scapegoat. He recalled how he once gave small change at random, and only then realized that their value was absurdly high. Nemesis admitted that he really was the rogue who spent Noah's money, but stated that it was only temporarily borrowed. The Snail King demanded his money back. It was unknown that Nemesis already had a completely different plan. Nemesis agreed to return it, but boldly smiled and clarified, "Let him go to the real owners." With a dramatic snap, the maid threw the treasure up into the sky above the city. The coins scattered across the roofs like fireworks, showering the people, while the greedy king shouted helplessly. Coins poured down like hail from the roofs, and the stunned townspeople joyfully gathered the wealth they once greedily hid. People celebrated, watching the palace shine, while Nemesis's message about justice echoed silently. Nemesis quoted the king's own words: "Money took away his power, and relying on that very truth dismantled his empire." His gold was taken away, and the Snail King fell in defeat, realizing that fear no longer enveloped him. He muttered about lost riches and froze helplessly as his palace began to crumble due to magical sabotage. When the palace collapsed, Nemesis declared the reign of the corrupt River Kingdom officially over. Diving through the skies, the thieves laughed joyfully, already recalling the thrilling heist. When asked what a phantom thief was, Nemesis realized he had never really known for sure. He warmly remembered childhood adventures, and sweetly poignant memories of his mischievous, playful younger years awoke in his chest. Recalling Ali and old friends, Nemesis smiled as if nostalgia for simpler, heroic times washed over her. Quietly reflecting, Nemesis remembered childhood dreams before power returned, when he was just 9 years old. He recalled secretly spinning around with friends. They invented missions and helped people in small towns hiding in the shadows. They waved wooden swords, shouted loud declarations, and pretended to be heroes together saving the world. Now that dream seemed distant, once noble, but spoiled by the reality he had already accepted. Justice, kindness, and hope once guided him, but now he served only his own idea. In childhood, he dreamed of becoming a good emperor like the heroes he admired. But that dream shattered in blood. He lost everything when darkness covered him mercilessly, without warning. In madness, clutching her lifeless body, he wept silently, broken and powerless, unable to change what had already happened. This pain turned into a firm resolve, and his gaze sharpened, filled with determination grown from pain, betrayal, and loss. Looking up, he accepted the truth. Everything had changed, and he had changed along with it. The girl fell into his lap, grateful that he had not changed, despite everything they had to go through. He looked away, embarrassed, while the winged creature teased him unexpectedly, lightly and effortlessly, with thrown phrases. Reflecting on their shared past, he refocused his attention on the duty awaiting him, and tomorrow would demand his leadership. As dawn approached, the capital beneath the mountains quietly stirred, preparing for their return. In the palace, the girl watched the festive crowds gathering, unaware of what fate would bring them. The princess received Prime Minister Guilford. His report carried weight regarding the fragile peace agreement of the kingdom. He recounted how the kingdom of snails suffered a blow from 2 elusive phantom thieves. The princess listened silently while Guilford confirmed the gold was returned by the phantom thief Nemesis. With relief, she barely smiled. Somewhere in the shadows, someone was still holding the defense of their kingdom. When the conversation turned to the 7 demon princes, tension returned and new threats began to emerge. The princess realized the group of heroes had once been rebels and now held influence over. She regretted having granted them power at random. Now their egos threatened the fragile internal stability of the kingdom. She asked Guilford to restrain himself. Now was not the time for reckless actions. Burdened heavily, she doubted her own appointment as empress, as doubts and pressure grew. Guilford answered honestly. Her role was not in strategy or war, but in securing unwavering respect for the country. Guilford clarified, political duties fall on the ministers, but unity is maintained by the deserved respect for the empress. She accused the rule of fear, but he called for leadership through trust, not intimidation like the vile terror from the demon lord. Understanding Daunt and Empress should inspire by example, so that others willingly choose to follow her example. Although she smiled and politely dismissed Guilford, doubt still swirled beneath her carefully composed, controlled appearance. Alone again, she doubted her own worth, clutching her sleeve, unsure if she could be respected at all. She recalled her idealistic past and how it was shattered by the harsh burdens of true leadership. When the defense was broken and the troops had not yet prepared, the empire soon after the coup fell into chaos. External threats loomed, but the shadows creeping inside the palace created even deadlier trials. Assassins approached relentlessly, silent, blades already drawn. Death was near, yet she each time barely slipped away from the final strike. But each time something invisible intervened, it cut through the darkness before it could reach her. Every time danger approached, an unknown figure appeared, and each time protected her from inevitable death. She realized everything was calculated and set in advance. Her salvation depended on the foresight of this mysterious protector. Surrounded by guards, she still felt lonely, not knowing who was plotting against her beneath her politely gentle smiles. The Empress feared betrayal, tormented by the thought that her own people might turn against her. In doubt, she wondered if Emperor Menace was the ruler they truly lacked. Although he was called a tyrant, the threat ruled with force, ensuring security through unwavering determination. Sitting on his throne, she finally understood how lonely true power could be. She recalled words of comfort spoken long ago and was not sure if they were really addressed to her. She doubted herself, but the memory of her savior's voice etched itself into her heart. In the end, these simple words gave her the courage and strength not to stop. She passionately wanted to know who the man in the cloak was, who always protected her. His face brought to the surface what she had once buried in the barely forgotten presence from her distant childhood. Though everything in memory was blurred, she still remembered the boy who always found words to soothe her tears. Once he was the same to her, kind, gentle, and always reaching out when she fell. Now she felt she had no right to let down, not matching the courage she once saw in him. His familiar words echoed Agonand for the first time she truly looked at him. Doubt melted away she understood, and once again she caught the thought, had the man from her past returned. His voice and kindness fit perfectly into her memory, the guardian from childhood, whom she had never truly forgotten. She quietly stood by the window, and her heart painfully clenched with certainty she still missed him very much. Minas walked alongside his comrades. Through the silence on the battlefield, swords were plunged into the ground all around. He collapsed from exhaustion, listening to their barely audible voices. Someone called, barely whispering, "Master, Master." Minna slowly opened her eyes, surprised by Primo's friendliness. She reached forward, urging him to get up. Still half asleep, a memory surfaced in Minna's mind. That evening he had taken Primo home after rescuing her. Primo reminded her of the traveler's duties. Minna groaned and tugged the blankets, pulling them over his head to buy time. Exhausted from travels and tasks, Minna resisted getting up, recalling the chaotic road and detour from yesterday. Primo, unafraid, threatened to pretend to be her decay ray and forced Minna's to stop his antics with a heavy sigh. Finally rising, Minna's agreed to eat. Primo reminded him breakfast was already waiting downstairs. He slowly stretched and dressed, stepping outside. The wind and sunlight began to completely chase away drowsiness. Monsters freely creaked through the spaces, and Mina smiled, grateful that both creatures and the gifted flowers bloomed peacefully. Nina built this house in the forbidden forest so that no one would ever dare to break in there again. He exhaled calmly, watching as his beast partner rested in freedom, no longer needing to hide wings or strength. Looking out the window, Mina smiled. This place, surrounded by danger, had finally become home. He dressed for the day, remembering breakfast from Primo, and headed to the dining room. Amazed, Minaz received greetings with dazzling exclamations and saw a shining servant shouting, "My liege." Afir shone with pride and declared himself the chef of Mina's breakfasts, swearing to cook perfect dishes every day. Minaz quietly accepted, watching the energetic Afir bloom under the sun like a real plant. With the help of Flair Ofer, he revealed a terrible vegetable lounge, raw, swollen, twitching, and looking alive even from far away. Minaz hesitated, admitting he did not like vegetables, and fear gripped him. Isn't the poisonous leech not exactly herbivorous? Passionately praised by fear, the vegetable benefit speech began and Minaz pushed forward, overcome by the speech. In the middle of the rush, he smashed the thoughts away. Despite doubts, Minaz agreed to try. At least the vegetables looked fresh. He bit carefully, maybe it wouldn't be such a horror after all, or maybe it was secretly tasty. The grassy earthy aftertaste burst explosively, his face froze, and he had the same disgusting taste as he looked. When Minaz was offered even more juice, she flinched fearfully and released a beam, rejecting Afir's anxious kindness. Primo rushed forward, cursed Afir, and stood up to defend Minaz. He silently thanked his sorrowful savior. Prima confidently revealed her dish, and declared that it was far better than anything Afir had prepared. To Minaz's shock, her dish was raw slime. Primo called it fresh and nutritious. Persho fidgeted with joy, waiting for his approval. Minaz hesitated whether this could even be considered his food. He took a bite, the texture stunned him, and the strange, swampy aftertaste overshadowed everything. Both chefs demanded praise. Mina froze, not uttering a word, while slime and vegetables fought for culinary supremacy. Minaz was annoyed by their rivalry and she acted quickly. Both chefs were officially dismissed. Primo and Afir were broken. Minaz did not expect them to take it so much to heart. Feeling guilty, we will sincerely apologize, acknowledging their efforts. The demonic princes were not meant to be cooks. Persistent, Mina called his grandmother. If no one knows how to cook, he will create someone who can. With a sharp click and a powerful spell, Mina summoned a new creature, Genesis Silky, born to serve. Silky, the house fairy cleaner, appeared and reliably disguised herself as a servant, because that made a monster who cleans. Minaz ordered Silky to prepare the food. She silently bowed, unmatched in cooking and domestic skill. Primo burst into tears painfully and jealously, because she decided that she had been replaced and pushed away. Minaz clarified she was never really his maid. Primo wore this clothing voluntarily. Silky presented a perfect breakfast, and finally Mina, smiling contentedly, looked at how this breakfast finally looked. Minaz tasted the dish. Silky. Finally, it was everything he craved, warm, balanced, and satisfying. The flavor was refined, simple yet profound. Every bite was a cozy blend of buttery perfection. Each element of the dish picked up the next minds, stated that this is the perfect breakfast. Silky was officially appointed as the head chef in the house. The others were stunned, and Silky accepted everything with dignity. Primo and Ofer were crushed. Silky just smiled, confident that she had won more than just breakfast. Afir and Primo, humiliated, swore revenge, and Primo burst into silky laughter while Minaz calmly enjoyed his food. Primo frowned. Ophir was opening up with reproaches, but no one admitted defeat. Minas simply ignored them, savoring his well-deserved breakfast. Tension boiled over. Words flew one after another. Memories of refusal sparked a brief but heated clash between them. Later peace returned. Tea was served with the softness of service. Minas quietly swallowed and allowed the morning to restore its rhythm. Suddenly Ophir froze with a stone face. Feeling danger, he reported a strange anomaly near the Fairy Kingdom forest. Ophir warned about the offended snakes. Minas calmly sipped tea and named the cause, Midahog. Midahog broke free, aimed at Yggdrasil to absorb its power and become a god. Ophir was shocked by Minas's knowledge. He praised the wisdom and foresight of his suzerain. Minas confidently smirked. He did not come to relax, he had already anticipated this threat. Everyone praised his genius. Minas downplayed it all but confirmed. If Yggdrasil is lost, it will be the end. The world tree, the source of all magic, towered in the very center. Its survival meant the survival of the world. If Yggdrasil dies, the flow of magic will break and life will cease to exist. Minas dismissed the long explanations. It was meant to happen near the end of the game, not now. He felt a chill. He ordered Ophir to watch Nidahog. Ophir promised to report immediately and rushed away. Minas rose, as always, was called by duty, and the morning calm lasted only briefly. The young man is preparing to set off. His shadowy magical hand quietly holds everything needed. She adjusts his tousled collar and hair. He proudly shows that he is ready and fully prepared. He says goodbye and entrusts her with the home confidently and ready to depart. Calmly smiling, he strokes his beast and watches as the winged guardian rises into the sky. She opens her arms wide, stands in the doorway, and waits for his safe return home. On the way back, he remembers. He always left Primo behind and looked at her smile from afar. He recalls their joyful adventure together. Her laughter still echoes in memories of their shared escapade. Carefully calling her name, he pauses for a moment before daring, runs his fingers through his hair, clearly pondering. Without turning fully, he directly asks her if she wants to join his journey today. With bright joy, Primo rushes forward, excitedly accepting his proposal to finally travel together again. The demon lord arrived in the city with his servant, hiding their true identities from the locals. He declared the city their shared workplace, and both the servant and the beast gleamed with delight. To blend in among their own, he registered her as a traveler. She nervously promised, ITR, which he explained as adventuring duties casually while they waited in line at the registration desk. Meanwhile, two travelers discussed Medi's disappearance. It vanished without a trace after they set off into the dangerous abyssal flat shoals. While waiting, they learned the Snail Kingdom suddenly stopped the attack for unknown reasons. Madi disappeared again without warning. He didn't utter a single word, ignoring those worried about his safety, and she broke into a sigh of despair. Medi suddenly appeared behind him, teasing him for clearly worrying about him all this time. She nervously denied it, but everyone greeted him back with surprise and obvious relief. The receptionist said that Makely relentlessly searched for everything, proving how much she cared. Embarrassed, Makely denied caring, blaming it all on reputation, while Medi mockingly responded with self-satisfied applause. Snapping with anger, she grabbed him and demanded an answer. Where does he disappear to, and why does he incessantly tease? The maid suddenly stepped forward and warned Macaulay, under no circumstances harm her master. Macaulay accused him of kidnapping, but he insisted that the maid's actions were entirely voluntary. They told everything, examined the battlefield, visited relatives, and took with them his ambitious maid. Primo officially received a traveler's license and joined G-Rank, just like her master. Her license was listed as an occupation, which caused surprise and even pleasant from herself. Despite concerns, she insisted on keeping the maid, claiming that no other useful skills existed. Although hesitant, Maddie assured that Macaulay would join their company and support them. Driven by their logic, Macaulay initially resisted, but eventually agreed. She realized she was deceived and forced to tutor Primo. Macaulay agreed to train Primo in exchange for a forced promotion to E-rank. Maddie teased him about that pseudonym, and eventually revealed she knew the secret he wanted to hide. And when she realized her advantage, she was overwhelmed with panic, while Macaulay led them on their first extermination raid. Maddie jokingly called her Michelle Rin-sensei, and this sparked a dispute about the name, which ended in a compromise. Primo proudly declared that her best skill was cleaning, and during the briefing she confused Macaulay. The mysterious cleaning of Primo could defeat even strong monsters, but not all of them succumbed. Maddie suggested that Primo support them from behind while he and Macaulay engaged in direct combat. Hearing the fight nearby, McCoy rushed there, refusing to leave others in danger. They came across travelers fighting a stone golem. Its huge body loomed threateningly ahead. The golem threw a heavy stone, and the wounded fighters faced the threat of death. Yeah, Primo covered the others and stood like a fortified wall firmly, not retreating, while ruins behind her flared and came alive with magical light. Macaulay built a powerful light barrier that protects everyone from the deadly attack of the stone golem. With the second level of light magic, Macaulay summoned the shining wall to stop the golem's advance. The monster was trapped and confused, and this gave Macaulay a chance to take position for a strike. She grabbed a shining orb and pierced the golem's core with it, and it crumbled to dust, instantly crumbled to rubble. Macaulay treated the wounded girls, calmly examining the wounds, until the shattered golem behind her crumbled to pieces. She praised the Mentor sisters for surviving the battle, and this knocked the ground from under their feet. They blushed confusedly and were shaken to trembling. After he calmed them down, Macaulay casually walked away, playing the role of a cold-blooded mentor, while Medi commented cheerfully. Primo praised Macaulay's strength, believing Medi's claim that she is a powerful, famous warrior. Embarrassed but flattered, Macaulay admitted that her reputation really exists, and was touched when Maddie mentioned her. Primo proudly declared that Macaulay is one of the strongest in the world, and this completely stunned her. Mandy confirmed that Macaulay's reputation as one of the top characters in Risnoi is well-deserved. But her main power is a magical costume skill with incredible combat potential. Maddie quietly gave the order Genesis Forest Wolf, and an E-rank monster rose ahead. Suddenly another Forest Wolf appeared behind them, and Macaulay had to prepare her special move. Macaulay's shining orb missed the Forest Wolf, but it did not give up, and this shook her with its resilience. Maddie insisted that she use her special skill again, and this made her shudder with discomfort and shy refusal. Singing loudly, Macaulay launched her magical transformation and abruptly burst into a radiant heroic pose, as if exploding with sparks. A bright flash and she completed a powerful costume change, completely impressing her allies. Now she boldly approached the monster and, announcing the attack, did so with new confidence. The Forest She-Wolf froze, not knowing how to react. Macaulay demanded that someone acknowledge her transformation. Maddie realized, in the game the outfit looks quite normal, but in real life it is comically awkward. Embarrassed, Macaulay shouted at Maddie, while Primo pretended sincere admiration for her outfit. Primo asked why her clothes had changed, not knowing that Macaulay could not control the visual style of the transformation. Smiling with anger and blush, Macaulay blamed Maddie and, with a firm intention of revenge, rushed to charge the embarrassed Forest Wolf. Macaulay Bryn released radiant energy, summoning the most powerful spell to flood and bite through the approaching monster. With explosive force, her cannon with starry glow hit, bathing the battlefield in blinding light and raw, furious power. The group silently watched the aftermath. Miko Rin's magical form granted her unbeatable stats and execution class abilities. In light form, Miko Rin ignored the enemy's defense, squeezing out elemental vulnerabilities, especially in zones with more monsters, notably in Riznoa. Mawa was created for monster extermination. Makorin stood confidently, the ultimate weapon, magical girl of light. As a dark demon instigator, he admitted that Makorin was his perfect opponent. Her magical form lasted 3 minutes. He teased her clumsy reaction to the lavish transformation. Nicole Rin twitched awkwardly, and she so wished that no one noticed her in the shameful magical girl costume. Unfortunately, her teammates suddenly appeared, alarmed by the noise. They rushed through the forest to check. They froze in shock, seeing how Miko Rin had completely changed, and remained stunned, overwhelmed with shame and without a single word. Macarin's friends froze in place. They did not understand what was happening and awkwardly made excuses, definitely twisting everything. When the group moved away, a puff of smoke put an end to her transformation. She tried to apologize, ashamed of her appearance, but irritation and pangs of conscience clearly weighed in her voice. He urged her to explain, but she got scared, overwhelmed by a wave of panic. She rejected sympathy and covered her face with her hands. While emotions had not yet settled, danger was already approaching. He rushed forward, defensively standing in front, covering Miko Rin and the others. He calmed Miko Rin as the tension grew, covering her while he himself watched as the others advanced. Suddenly the girls froze, wide-open eyes under the deadly magic known as Medusa's Gate. McOren pointed towards something unknown and immediately realized. The friends were frozen by the gaze of a nearby, creeping threat. A terrifying hiss was confirmed and a huge serpent appeared. Its gaze was sharp, capable of freezing. The serpent crawled forward through the grass, and both Mikkel Rin and he looked amazed, not believing their own eyes. They identified the monster, a B-rank serpent with the gaze of Medusa, and it was fatally out of place here. Miko Rin was frightened. This forest was not a demonic zone, its presence broke all expected rules of monster behavior. Even more serpents crawled out of the shadows, surrounding them from all sides so tightly that no gap remained. Their appearance was calm but unnaturally so. Even the wolf felt that something was wrong. The group was tightly encircled by the coordinated movements of the serpents. Despite the serpents being too close and threatening, they had not yet shown intent to kill, but their unnatural behavior fueled deeper suspicions. He suspected that the serpents were not acting alone. Someone powerful must be controlling their movement. The serpents reacted unnaturally. A muffled voice sounded, and the echo confirmed intelligence. Someone stood behind their hostile organization. Their controller declared himself Nidhogg, king of dragons, vowing to plunge the world into ruin. Mythog, the ancient dragon king, suddenly appeared before Menes and declared war on him without any reason. Minas and his allies froze in place as the numerous heads of Nidhogg surrounded them, radiating a merciless, devastating, deadly aura. Reborn again with terrible power, Nidhogg proclaimed that there was nothing in this world that could challenge him, not even heroes. Nidhogg swore to destroy the fairy kingdom and mercilessly ruin the sacred world tree. In despair, Min's group rejected surrender, even as Nidhogg declared humanity's resistance completely pointless. Nidhogg roared through the forest, demanding submission, and his name thundered like a storm in the air, echoing back. The serpent heads shouted to the people, promising death and destruction with frightening, relentless certainty. Realizing the threat was real, the warrior who led Nidhogg used his serpent snakes to declare war. The fairy kingdom burned as Nidhogg unleashed his attack, just as the game scenario had predicted. She clenched herself, watching the chaos unfold, and trembled. She knew, still too weak to fight. Miko Rin left home to become stronger, her fate tied to the defeat of the tyrant Nidhogg. In the original game, Nidhogg was her final trial, but in this timeline, everything is already different. Miko Rin is unprepared, and Minus's death caused the boss events to trigger much earlier. When both Miko Rin and Alex are too weak, Nidhogg's attack means inevitable doom for humanity. But Nidhogg made one critical mistake. His war missed an invisible variable that continued to move in the shadows. He smiled calmly and declared, "Nidhogg's war is not just against humanity, it is against him." Mocking the dragon's arrogance, he called Nidagamir a mid-level boss who stepped above his rank. To him, this world seemed like a game, and only he could decide how it would end. The Hydra serpent tails burst into rage, their bloodthirstiness boiling until the clash reached its climax. His gaze did not waver even once. If they challenged his authority for them, it was the end, the finale. With a calm gesture, he signaled Primal at him, his faithful companion, take on the incoming Hydras. Without hesitation, Primo unleashed the full power of destructive magichitting and piercing every serpent in seconds. Primo smiled innocently, announcing the end all. The others froze in shock at her terrible hidden power. Although the forest was cut down during the further development of the global event, countless serpents appeared. He froze over the fallen beasts and promised he would personally crush everything that posed a threat to his world. He ordered Primo to plug Miko Rin's ears and get in touch with the elite demonic princes. With a tall, grim authority, he commanded total war. The princes were to destroy every serpent without mercy. In a moment, the forest roared, and the beast roar from the other edge of the land began to gather for battle. Birds, wolves, and monsters moved naturally. Miko Rin feared that this was the growing influence of Nidhogg. He quietly had no idea whether all this was too much to touch the first seat of the Demon Lord. Miko Rin rushed forward, firmly determined to protect the fairy country despite the warnings of her allies. Others tried to stop her because they feared, if she went against Nidhogg with this power, she would die. She shouted that the fairy kingdom was her home, and she could not just sit idly and wait. Even before she revealed her true identity, she was interrupted, silenced, and ordered to skip all this drama. He cut her off arrogantly but hastily. There was no more time for emotional speeches and long explanations. He reminded them this was a world without turn-based battles. The event was moving in real time without pauses. Promising safety, he confidently smiled just before new snakes appeared, and panic arose among the girls around. When the monsters crawled closer, panic swept like a wave and they suddenly vanished into the shadows beneath his feet. He calmly explained, his skill safely hides 3 girls in his shadow. When the preparation was complete, he returned to Miko Rin and declared that they would set off to the fairy kingdom. Miko Rin was shocked that he did not stop her. She calmly asked why he showed it at all. Her will would be unshakable, he explained. She would go no matter what because that is who she is. He quietly called her by name, Macaulay Spinkart, the girl who never gives up and hides nothing. With fire in her eyes, she smiled. She did not wait for the house to be destroyed. With renewed determination, he called Primo. They had already moved before the window closed again. With a magical spell, Primo summoned a carriage round, like bubbles, and unexpectedly designed to death. She grabbed Miko Rin and rushed aboard, announcing departure before anyone could ask her about her logic. He casually stated that princesses need carriages. Miko Rin was even more confused by his sudden magical appearance. Primo proudly declared that she built it herself, and he assured them it will not travel on the ground. Instead, their carriage rose into the sky and crawled above the clouds. It was pulled by a winged creature glowing with divine presence. Miko Rin flinched in fear as soon as she recognized the dog. She realized it had truly grown to incredible sizes overnight. Calmly, he reminded her, "This is not a dream. Everything happening now is absolutely real." Smiling, he ordered them to hold on tight. The carriage, resembling a bubble, was already ready for takeoff. The wings beat strongly as soon as the carriage rose, and Miko Rin froze in shock, speechless, with wide-open eyes. Flying above the clouds, he smiled. Ahead was a dragon hunt, and they would arrive by dusk. A colossal twisted tree with a mark stood in the very center of the battlefield, where the old zone and the real meat grinder began. A young fairy warrior with a spear in hand approached the sacred border of the fairy kingdom. Childhood memories overwhelmed her like a wave. The fields bloomed endlessly, petals danced, and her laughter echoed in the air. Here, next to her mother, Nishals learned the truth. The world tree was slowly losing its power. Filled with anxiety, Mikola asked if the flowers would disappear forever. Her mother gave an encouraging answer. Pressing closely to the warmth of the mother, Mikli's smile dreams of the future they will share together. The warm, gentle smile of the mother confirmed Nichols' hope was not a fleeting dream. Suddenly she was transported. Mikola held her breath as familiar faces appeared, tearing her from thoughts into the very urgent reality. The boy calmed her panic, assuring that they would reach the world trees safely. The roots of the world tree stretched through enchanted forests, guarded by elves hidden from outside interference. This sacred place, untouched and alive beneath the masses of branches, was revered as the elven paradise. Flying over the valley on Mikola's side, everything was safe. Both the pink heart and the pants were unharmed. The mysterious boy signals the approach of conflict and prepares to face it from the very beginning. Their magical crew rapidly descended, just as a critical game episode was about to unfold. The spell stabilizing their flying ship wavered, and everyone was thrown inside, while panic and confusion spread everywhere. At the edge, he cast wind magic updraft to regain control before disaster struck the whole group. It was confusing. How could he cast a level 6 magic when the limit was level 5? Michaelis interrogated him to answers. He insisted that he did not know, avoiding the impossibility of applying wind magic. Tension inside the group was growing, and everyone, holding their position, prepared. The carriage jerked again in the air. He ordered Glacia to speed up. Meekly shuddered while the beast obeyed without hesitation and any doubts. Bursting into the palace, they suddenly remembered the deadly barrier guarding it. A collision seemed inevitable. Having no time to think, he ordered Primo to destroy the magical barrier of the palace. Primo fired a powerful shot. Explosions tore the sky and completely destroyed the barrier. The protective shell around the palace collapsed. The magical structure cracked from the sudden impact. Mikali froze in fear, but the boy waved off her fears, smiling as if nothing had happened. Primo explained, "The explosion scattered everything to dust, almost a miracle that the world tree survived." Shouting out of helplessness, Mikola demanded answers. He could not understand the logic of their chaotic mission. Their arrival at the palace caused panic. The guards rushed outside, mistaking them for enemy invaders. Standing before the crowd of royal sorcerers, they quickly realized they were not just outnumbered, they were numerically crushed. However, despite entering peacefully, the palace guards remained aggressive. The news of the declaration of war kept them on edge. Suddenly, enchanted arrows flew toward him, explosive on impact, with frightening precision and force. A massive explosive wave burst out, but the smoke quickly dispersed and he stood unharmed with a confidently raised hand. He emerged whole and unscathed, mocking their attempts. Such attacks were futile against his devastating power and palpable presence. In the shadow, enveloped by an aura, he revealed his essence, the invincible class of the final boss. With a self-satisfied smile, he prepared a counterattack, activating 9th-level dark magic while his aura was recovering. Using gravity magic, he crushed the guards, forcing them to submit. They knelt and could no longer move. Mikls wildly charged at him and demanded answers, accusing him of pretending to be a villain. During the clash, the guard recognized her identity. They quietly acknowledged the lost princess, who was believed to have been taken from the kingdom forever. When the tension reached its peak, a commanding voice silenced everyone, and a majestic figure stepped forward with unquestionable authority. Everyone immediately fell to their knees. Only footsteps echoed, as the mysterious woman commanded loyalty and sowed cautious fear. The enigmatic Queen Pinkheart from the Fairy Kingdom appeared before them and began interrogating their purpose as suspected enemy invaders. Mikali quietly called the queen, not knowing if her mother would recognize her now. The boy quietly watched their meeting, noting in his mind, the queen's cold presence held no warmth. Three arrived at the royal court, their bold appearance muffling the air, tightening the tension. The queen confirmed that they came to fight Nadog themselves. Nadog was shocked by their reckless determination. Miko Rin trembled, standing before the queen, her estranged mother, after fleeing the kingdom in a bitter conflict. The man seized control of the moment, mocking the queen and declaring royal authority. The angry presence was protestingly drowned out by loud shouts, yet the queen remained calm, drowning her emotions in a composed gaze. He boldly smiled, looking at their outrage, and mockingly belittled their anger as if it were just an empty formality. Confused, he asked why they were hostile, not knowing that his own behavior mirrored the vices of an evil tyrant. His complete arrogance fueled the tension, while the threat of Primo only further thickened the hostility in the room. The guards angrily raised their weapons, but to retreat they stopped their advance. The queen coldly stood up, rejected their offer, and declared that her help was neither needed nor desired. Mikali, in a frenzy, rushed forward, begging the queen not to send them away again. Clenching herself with determination, she sincerely begged, asked the queen to listen before making her final decision. The queen coldly dismissed their words, declaring that there was no time for foolish distractions or emotional pleas. Mikali passionately defended her mission, while her companions responded with frivolous, carefree jokes. Despite her cries, the queen firmly cut off the conversation, unwilling to accept any external help. The queen sharply struck the ground with a staff and stepped forward to declare that Mikkels would interfere with their actions. She warned, protecting Mikali would cost lives, it would break their formation and put her elite soldiers at risk. Spreading her arms, the queen asked whether Mikali's sacrifice was worth it and whether he was truly worth bringing into battle, killing loyal warriors. She again refused their offer, firmly stating that Mikali's presence was neither needed nor desired. Coldly and decisively, the queen ordered her to leave, silencing all protests with a single word. The queen raised an eyebrow at his audacity, surprised that he so openly and directly declared the threat. He resolutely explained that this was not her fight, and her soldiers had no business interfering. She asked him mockingly, "Is this a threat or just a childish warning?" Unfazed, he confirmed that it was a threat, demonstrating dominance with chilling confidence and unwavering certainty. He warned, if they intervene, even elves will be crushed like worthless obstacles. He smiled fiercely and declared that all would fall along with the monsters if anyone dared to intervene. Turning away, he ordered them to evacuate, powerless against Nidhogg, no matter how many there were. When mockingly called arrogant, he calmly insisted it was confidence, declaring he knew everything for sure. Returning to the game's plot, he predicted the death of Queen Mysteria in the upcoming catastrophe. The queen calmly accepted her fate, boasting of her strength and disdainfully mocking Nidhogg, claiming he was inferior to her. He was stunned. The world had no idea that SS-rank monsters like Nidhogg even existed. Only SS-rank fighters could stop Nidhogg, and Queen Mysteria's level guaranteed her a swift death. Despite everything, she stood firm, ready to die for her kingdom and the whole world. They exchanged a silent glance, and together decided to protect what they loved at any cost. With her last words, the queen ended the conversation and went to meet her fate. Before leaving, the queen asked him not to let Mikkeli's act on emotions. With a heavy farewell, the queen disappeared behind the door, and silence remained after her. He understood both women love, but are emotionally clumsy, always hurting to protect themselves. He predicted that the inevitable death of Mysteria would break Mikkeli's, just like in the game in the original story. Sobbing over her fallen mother, Mikkeli screamed desperately she could not come to terms with the loss. Lady Mikkeli was already afraid, and that feeling grew stronger. Her grief pushed her to terrible new heights. But for him, this tragic future also seemed empty, too bleak to be accepted. He stubbornly vowed to change fate and called it only the good ending. Despite trembling fear of the elves with sharp tongues, he ordered Primo to hold the palace defense. Although Nidhogg could not be stopped, he believed, with her the palace would be safe. To defeat Nidhogg and reach the best ending, Mikkeli's presence was absolutely necessary. Not finding her, he recalled a familiar place tied to her childhood scuffles. He understood she ended up in that memory-bound location, just like in the game. A masked ally appeared and warned, as soon as Nidhogg gathers strength, his attack will be imminent. Deploying the kingdom against the serpents would leave them defenseless against the unexpected full-force strike of Nidhogg. He insisted that Nidhogg must not be allowed to escape, otherwise he would return each time stronger endlessly. Nidhogg fought unfairly, cunningly, and dirty, which made even experienced allies like Ofer and Primo unreliable in battle. With regeneration, invulnerability, and teleportation, Nidhogg was almost unkillable, especially with his survival instincts. Despite everything, despite the circumstances, He stepped forward, his cloak fluttering, and vowed personally to see the Dragon King through to the end. His loyal follower trembled, realizing he was finally witnessing the master releasing his long-hidden true form. The strategist only smiled. He had already seen the enemies move ahead. He whispered a plan that only Ofer heard. He reminded Ofer of the exact time coordination between them would decide how the battle ends. Confident that his subordinates would not betray him, he moved forward. Victory depended on every flawlessly executed move. Miko quietly stood in the hidden forest shelter, not understanding why her heart felt so heavy. She looked up at the sacred tree, recalling the burden she once vowed to bear. A sudden rustle broke her silence. From the dark robes appeared a figure. She casually slipped past the curtain of leaves. The man admitted that he knew her secrets down to the place she thought was unknown to anyone. She demanded answers. He dismissed any sentiment, hinting that his visit was meant for more than simple comfort. He declared that they must return immediately, thereby revealing preparations for the inevitable threat named Nidhogg. But Miko refused, believing that her presence would achieve nothing, and her mother's doubts were entirely justified. She recounted how she had trained for years, yet her mother never considered her worthy of the battlefield. Even leaving home to become stronger, she still tries in vain. She fails to earn her mother's recognition. Snapping from anger, she asked for support, but he remained cold, insisting they avoid this emotional conversation. Miko jerked sharply in irritation. He was stung by the indifferent tone. Awkwardly tried to offer empty reassurance. She abruptly turned away, declaring that she was unnecessary here, while he inside compared her to programmed behavior in a game. Surrendering, he realized he was not the protagonist. He could not say what she needed most. A sudden roar cut off their conversation. He immediately recognized the trembling. The arrival of Nidhogg had already begun. Wings tore the sky as a huge figure descended. The battle had begun. The Dragon King Nidhogg descended from the heights and declared the intent to destroy the world without mercy. Miko nervously watched as Nidhogg's wings hovered over him, and his shadow covered the distant royal capital. She tried to justify safety by saying that behind the restored barrier everything would be fine, and decided that her mother's kingdom would hold. But he explained Nidhogg's power exceeded all expectations. The barrier designed for ranks would not hold. Before Miko could react, Nidhogg struck the barrier. It cracked under the devastating power of SS rank. Nidhogg tore the sky with a fiery flash, and Miko froze, not believing her own eyes. Spawning countless serpent-like monsters, Nidhogg ordered his to march and smash everything in their path. A thunderous stream of dragons poured over the land, shaking the ground with relentless fury. Miko froze in place as Nidhogg flew overhead, wing beats drowning out the cries of burning forests. Realizing that the world tree and its people were doomed, she sank down helplessly and fell silent. When the world tree was burning, they understood. The true hero who was supposed to save them had disappeared. When the roaring winds and firestorm howled, Miko clenched her glove. She recognized this moment as their only chance. He extended his hand to her and declared their goal to fight Nidhogg, whether they were ready or not. Miko was scared but broke free from resistance. She was sure they had no chance against such a mad, destructive force. Overwhelmed by fear and doubt, Miko screamed and believed she would not have the strength to fight. Miko broke down and confessed her pride was just a mask hidden deep in valuable papers. Next to him, she felt worthless. He grabbed her hand and stepped forward, and everything she loved was burning, and she had already rejected it. Broken by guilt and fear, Miko admitted she could not just stand aside, yet she still hesitated. She was scared, afraid that her appearance would take a life. She was haunted by her mother's harsh expectations. She cries, she refused to go, and if her mother died, she would never be able to forgive herself. Miko turned away, stunned by defeat, and stubbornly insisted if she went along, she would only hold him back. He coldly agreed, made her cry, and then jokingly pushed her, teasing her weakness without any restraint. From this said to her face, Miko froze. His cold honesty strangely drew her back. He declared that only he could assess her value and did not allow her to give up, no matter how much she wanted to. For him, the world was a game, and only he decided who fights whom and who stays out of the fight. He explained that Miko had a decisive role to change fate and prevent the destruction of the world. Looking into her eyes again, he said it directly. She was needed by him to survive. Miko tried to look cool, but tears revealed how deeply his words hit her. He was confused. The attempt to cheer her up turned into unexpected tears, and she did not calm down. Without time to hesitate, he lifted her into his arms and decided they would follow his path. Embarrassed and confused, Miko demanded answers while calmly explaining that this was the princess's character. With a playful trick, he declared that she was being kidnapped because time would not wait for her. He silenced her panic, looking sternly. She needed to stop doubting and simply trust his guidance. Ignoring her protests, He rushed forward, declaring that the tears were over the mission had begun. Smiling in flight, he confidently shouted that they would fulfill her long-standing dream. And now finally, the dream would come true together. A powerful wave of flame covers the forest. He rushes headlong down and carries her to safety. He calmly reassures her, then without hesitation rushes into the burning core of the fire, fully shielding her. A magical creature answers his call. They sit on its back and leap into the open sky. The beast rises above the scorched lands, and below an ally notices them and calls out joyfully. They land safely. The girl proudly tells that she defended the castle, although everything got a bit out of control. Archers release frosty arrows upward, preparing an attack, while tension spreads across the battlefield. The elven sorceress calls upon mighty light magic, calmly directing the energy, then unleashes her strongest divine spell strike. A blazing flash explodes in the air, disorienting the black dragon with a shock magical force. The dragon wildly retaliates with a strike, shattering barriers, and the sorceress struggles incredibly to hold the spell under pressure pressing from all sides. The spell breaks. The mages collapse from exhaustion. She barely stands, gasping for air. She has already spent all her strength. Mickley breaks through the battlefield with dashes, and her voice breaks when she sees her wounded mother falling to the ground. She manages to grab her fading mother in an embrace. Panic, mixed with shock and disbelief at what she sees, overwhelms her. The queen admits that she underestimated the power of Nidhogg. Her grip weakens, and the danger still hangs over them. Despite protests, the mother urges Mikkels to flee and survive, placing hope in her daughter. Nethug watches from above. He finds their bond amusing, but he is sure this will end in failure. Nidhogg mocks love, justice, and strategy, claiming that in a real fight only raw power matters. He despises human weakness, roaring madly with might as he prepares to annihilate all who stand below. The flame of death rises above them without any obstacles, and every elf and every low-level human will perish. But the hero responds first, intercepting the first summoning of slimes that explode on Nidhogg, instantly disrupting his spell concentration. And although Nidhogg is powerful, his strike needs time to charge. The amazing slime attack completely confuses him. Nodding with a confident smile, he explains how the slimes disrupted Nidhogg's flame even before it activated. Mocking Nidhogg's ideology, he decides to adopt the same phrase but with much greater control. Stunned, Nethug demands to name the name. The hero smiles. He has a giggly pleasure from how the dragon suddenly loses confidence. He easily declares that he is only the final boss, and from this, the mighty dragon is confused and wary. Smiling, he explains once again that he is the strongest in the world. The insult drives Nidhogg into an attack. He launches even more slugs at Nidhogg, mocking his attack, saying it is a futile and outdated strategy. Despite being strangled, Nidhogg rejects defeat. He declares that human resistance is futile and not worth his challenge. Angrily, Nidhogg promises destruction, swears revenge, and directs his fury at the sacred world tree. With terrible speed, the dragon rises into the sky. Before the eyes of the spectators, everything freezes as death rushes straight to the heights. Calmly observing, the hero acknowledges the inevitable. He declares, the end of the world tree has already begun. Panic in Macaulay while her mother coughs up blood and begs, stop speaking further. The queen mourns Macaulay's return. She would have been better off not going to the battlefield. There is only pain there. Tears roll down as Macaulay confesses. She returned not out of duty but to protect her mother. The queen barely smiles, calls him a silly child, and recognizes in herself that very core. On her last breath, she whispers her truth. She only wanted to protect Macaulay too. With a tearful look, she apologizes. She only wanted her daughter to live a peaceful life. Blood splatters as she begs again. The Macaulays must survive no matter what happens next. Macaulay holds her tightly, refusing to accept death. Her mother calls her precious daughter. Gasping, the queen pleads with the hero to protect Macaulay and escape before it's too late. The unyielding hero sharply refuses the queen's last request, dismissing responsibility with complete indifference. He smirks crookedly at Macaulay's "why not run" comment. This is a boss fight, the real fun begins. Irritated, he scolds them for panicking. One dragon is no reason to prepare for the worst. He pours a glowing elixir on her, declaring that he alone will decide what ending they get. The queen wakes fully restored. Macaulay and others freeze in stunned joy, overwhelmed by shocking happiness. The potion works too well, her skin glows. He casually praises the elixir for its beauty effect. The elves rejoice because Mysteria lives. The hero prepares to act again, throwing something. He claims that he is taking control of the helm of fate and rewriting fate itself, but Mysteria admits that she survived, although she doubts. She alone is not capable of defeating Nidhogg. No matter how many years of preparation have taken place, everyone understands. Humans cannot overcome dragons no matter how much they train. The hero playfully agrees, and his despair shows how serious everything is and how exciting it becomes. Smiling, he reminds them, this is why it is so fun, they can really lose. The former final boss smiled coldly. He knew that the end of the game no longer concerned him. Without the presence of the protagonist, he took full control, reshaping the world as he wished. Suddenly, huge white snakes broke through the city walls, forcing the royal guard to act immediately. The enemy calmly gave orders. His forces were ready, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The loyal servant sprang forward and unleashed devastating attacks, smashing the arriving monsters to prove his loyalty to his master without any hesitation. The white scorpion snakes writhed wildly, and thick tree branches burst out from inside their bodies. The soldiers watched in despair and disbelief as the terrifying snakes transformed into trees right before their eyes. The transformation happened because Opter sowed seeds, and they grew wildly and burst inside the snake's flesh. Nathog predicted the invasion route, and thanks to this, the ultimatum operator operated at full power. But he smiled coldly, understanding. Strategy alone is worthless if it does not carry an invincible, unstoppable brute force. When the battlefield fell silent, he announced the next phase. The final boss was already approaching. He called Miko Rin to join him. He rushed forward, leaving others stunned by his decision. Without hesitation, Miko Rin took the maternal staff and decided to join the upcoming battle herself. Her mother panicked. She knew the threat ahead, even she could not wound the beast. In despair, the queen screamed and warned her daughter, this battle means certain death. Mikali finally embraced her mother, apologizing for the harsh words once thrown in childish anger. Although she was scared and uncertain, she believed this mission was hers alone, and she alone must carry it out. She promised to fulfill her mother's dream and smiled brightly one last time, saying goodbye. Wasting no time, she rushed to the battlefield. Flames rose as her mother shouted after her. Despite the fear, her mother silently watched, knowing her daughter had chosen this path. Mikali boldly touched him and demanded, if their reckless plan goes awry, let him fix everything. He nodded and touched with his fists, silently promised that she would still see those flowers. The idea of a peaceful future brought hope, a promise tied to the world tree. Her mother smiled gently, hiding her fear, and vowed to join as soon as peace comes. With pure determination, the young girl declared that she would take on the mission herself to save the world tree. Clenching her fists, the girl vowed to beat the dragon and heal the world tree. With joy and determination, she stood before the sacred tree, declaring her greatest desire. Old and humbled, she shouted that her goal was to fill the whole world with flowers. Nidhogg confirmed everyone's positions and calmly ordered his allies to move to the final strategy. Even the allies burning with the desire for battle were ordered to hold back and were surprised with a softer mission. This time, Nidhogg chose destruction himself, assigning defense and future restoration work to his allies. She bowed deeply, beamed with a smile, and wished her master a safe return from the upcoming battle. He stood alone before the battlefield, finally preparing for the chaos that was about to break free. The image of loss surfaced in him again, memories brought to the surface by someone's grief, echoing through the pain he once endured. He vividly remembered his mother's death, the source of his strength and shattered worldview. Stunned and powerless, he first came to beside the bloodied girl and became Demon Lord Menace. Overcome by losses, he rejected kindness, considering strength the only way to survive, and gained power by force. Now firmly grasping his hand, he activated a long-forbidden technique, releasing his own sealed power. With a cold gaze, he activated full limit break, unleashing all skills together simultaneously. Monstrous creatures emerged from the shadows as soon as he stepped forward, preparing for the final confrontation ahead. Dark claws reached for him, but he did not flinch, accustomed to the abyss. He was surrounded by demons, and he accepted his role, not a hero but that evil necessity. He no longer believed in salvation, only in merciless destruction born from irreversible transformation. Tyranny, greed, and the surge of power traits he embraced far surpassed the dragon in every category. With confidence, he declared that his identity was not a hero or savior, but the final boss. His face twisted, the transformation completed, and he met chaos with a monstrous, toothy smile. Fully awakened, the overlord of demons spread his wings and announced that the true beginning of his reckoning had already come. Minos began phase 2. He was certain the destruction of the world tree would pass without resistance or delay. Descending to inspect, he came upon an unnatural sight. The forest thickened and stood untouched, not decaying, and everything there thrived. In an instant, the trees struck back, piercing all his snakes. His powers scattered, and no one intervened. Confused and frightened, Minos turned to the shadowy figure. Its appearance was unknown, yet too familiar and eerie. Reacting instinctively, Minos unleashed fiery breath, aiming to erase this new unpredictable threat immediately. Mina noticed a person in the very hell, bewildered by the fact that she found herself in the domain of dragon fire. Unflinching, he was confident. No one would survive his flames, not even the strongest human spells. But the person calmly raised a hand, releasing highly advanced magic with precision and deadly intent. Casting level 10 water magic, she used Absolute Zero, a devastating spell that instantly stopped everything. When the light engulfed him, Mina froze in disbelief. The flame vanished as if such a chase never existed and never happened. The dragon realized the flame was not extinguished by wind or water, it simply disappeared unnaturally, instantly. In the icy moment, warmth yielded to silence. Mina's lush fire was crushed by merciless, all-encompassing cold evil. The crack confirmed his wings were covered with ice. Under the impassive reptilian gaze, panic arose. In despair, he rushed upward, rekindling the flame again, but the cold force strangled it before it even flared. Slowly descending, the winged sorceress emerged fierce, composed, and not at all confused. Her powers were still rapidly gaining strength. The demon smiled confidently, his very presence suffocated, overwhelming Mina with a crushing aura as if he was glued to the spot. Time stopped while Mina stared gasping. He was stunned by a power that surged far beyond his understanding. Calmly, the demon promised an explanation why this battle was lost even before it began. He purposefully pointed out, naming the sole reason for Mina's defeat, and now stood against him. Minos shuddered when he realized he had underestimated someone who had not even begun to fight truly. Mina analyzed the form and writing, feeling that the person far surpassed other human fighters entirely. Yet he still held on to faith. People are weak dragons, and the rule belongs to the one who reigns by force and bloodline. The fierce Minas surged forward, proclaiming revenge for the insult to the almighty majesty of the Dragon King ruler. Seeing that the fire did not work, Minas resorted to brute force, rushing forward to tear the enemy to pieces. The man drew his sword, uttering a 10th-level swordsmanship dimension rend, a cut that slices beyond physical reality itself. Minas charged forward with all his strength, but froze just before the strike. His body refused to move. There was no visible blow, yet blood gushed out. The body had already acknowledged the wound before the mind understood it. The attack bypassed the defense, cutting through both pride and flesh. Minas panicked at the impossible. The demon smiled and proposed a game, a twisted mercy masked by cruel mockery. He will freeze for a moment. If Minas manages to hit, he will be allowed to scoff. Enraged, Minas rushed forward, pleading to the demon Puna, striving to deliver the final devastating blow. Feinting and an obvious hint at an attack mean that we have to disguise the strike and hit him in his pride. Everything depends on this one thing. The demon calmly parried the blow, revealing Axe Art 10th level Q de Grey, and launched an unstoppable devastating strike from top to bottom. Mina fell to the ground stunned, although her defense was flawless. In the air, she was completely torn to pieces. The demon quietly mocked and apologized, sincerely asking if not repaying Mina's would preserve pride. Seeing his defeat at close range, Minas retreated, raising a hail of flames while swiftly dodging in flight. He roared with the flame of death devouring the field, rushing forward through distance and destruction to seize victory. Without any impression, the demon prepared Boart, a level 10 technique, once again from a high tier fueled by moonlight. With graceful precision, he released a single crescent moon arrow, charged with piercing divine energy. The arrow hit accurately, piercing Minas's body right in the air, cutting off his flame and scream with merciless finality. Minas, in shock, watched as his flame of death evaporated, and the demon remained completely unharmed. Hovering above them, the demon softly teased and asked if their warm-up was finally over. Smiling, he revealed the truth. All previous techniques were merely human class skills and only for fun. Minas realized with horror that the creature before him was not human. It was only pretending. At that moment, he accepted the truth, and the power inflated this logic, scale, and significance. Mina gazed into the abyss of the demon's power and could not comprehend what exactly she was facing. The Lord of Demons confronted the Dragon King, mocking his fear and declaring that the battle was almost over. Grinning ominously, he cruelly provoked further, pressing the Dragon King to fight even though he was losing. He suggested maiming himself and by this humiliated him even more, while the Dragon King was frightened and resisted. In despair, the Dragon King proposed an alliance, promising half the world to avoid certain defeat. The Lord of Demons listened silently, the calm on his face concealed the all-conquering power he still held. The Dragon King trembled as the Lord of Demons interrogated him, demanding silence over desperate pleas. The Demon Lord looked through everything and continued to mock, forbidding any mercy and even pitiful negotiations. He declared that the Dragon King's role was trivial, existing only as entertainment for his cruel pleasure. The Dragon King realized he was spared, only temporarily left alive for amusement under merciless cruelty. Despair crushed him. He knew Against ordinary heroes he might still have chances, but this monster doomed everything to hopelessness. The Lord of Demons declared the world his game, revealing that everything in it belonged only to him. He casually raised his hand, accepting the weakness of the Dragon King and prepared for decisive action. With a cold smile he promised death, summoning a terrifying magic that spread across the skies. The Dragon King panicked. His eyes widened in disbelief, and he realized that the devastating catastrophe was about to. Countless magical circles filled the sky, covering his fate under an inevitable, all-encompassing annihilation from above. The Dragon King recognized the heavenly circles, legendary spells that required impossible power, and now he called them effortlessly from above. Despair deepened. It was divine power, a stage for divine punishment, blasphemous destruction. Demon Lord Minos revealed his second form, proclaiming the highest technique that Bert had not fully. Thus, with devastating power, he unleashed Apocalypse Noah, and the Dragon King vanished in complete annihilation. Far away, witnesses stared upward stunned, for divine rays tore the heavens and brought down ruin. Beneath the enormous circles stood followers, watching in awe as divine power endlessly spread through the skies. They acknowledged the insignificance of Nidhogg, praising the strength of their master, which proved overwhelming against such a pitiful opponent. He complained about misfortunes, but the girl reminded him. The master had explicitly demanded a personal victory. She reasoned that perhaps their master needed this battle only to defeat the enemy himself. She watched closely and smiled, noticing the joy of the demon lord, and fought with a nightmarish but playful strength. She noted the master's second form usually came with pain, but now he looked determined. Looking up, she wholeheartedly believed. He fought voluntarily, choosing this clash of his own will. When asked, she laughed cheerfully and stated that only intuition revealed to her the true intentions of her master. With a bright smile, she declared that from the very beginning she was the eldest and closest companion of the master. His other servant responded arrogantly, emphasizing trust and responsibility. Finding loyalty is more important than history. Two servants loudly quarreled, arguing over seniority, missions, and recognition of loyalty. Meanwhile, the Devil Lord Minos unleashed the Apocalypse Noah, and the power of all hostile creatures turned to nothing. The attack disabled resistance, healing, and protection, the embodiment of the ultimate destructive move from Rizno. Thus, exhausted and stunned, the Dragon King posed a question to the minds about their impossible power, trembling before such terrible might. Finally acknowledging the hopelessness, the Dragon King fell in spirit and admitted defeat, surrendering before the relentless force standing before him. He believed escape was possible if he reached the portal before Minos's destructive magic burned everything to the ground. The portal worked on time. It flared up before Apocalypse destroyed his magical points. Announcing the retreat, the Dragon King tried to withdraw, wings beating wildly, breaking free to freedom. But Mina snapped her fingers. The portal instantly cracked, crushing the escape and finally cutting off hope. Shuddering, the Dragon King suddenly realized his escape was instantly shattered and his mind was covered with complete confusion. Minos mocked him, calling him a slippery cockroach, acknowledging his stubborn survival despite hopeless odds. Maliciously, Mina closed Dimension Door, declaring that escape from the final confrontation was impossible. The Dragon King screamed in panic, trembling with horror. Escape was no longer possible. But at one health point left, his passive defense skill reached its maximum, complicating Mina's victory. Minos revealed his hidden trump card, the skill of executing monsters, capable of bypassing the highest defenses. With a twisted smile, he prepared the finishing blow, proclaiming that the end of the Dragon King was inevitable. Her companion stepped forward with confidence, leading her beast, ready to help carry out Minos's ruthless command. Miko Rin accepts the task to hide together with Glazia, using invisibility while the battle continues. Their ally devises a plan to break Nidhogg's teleportation and drive him into retreat. They tried to lure Nidhogg during his escape, extracting key information from his confusion. After Miko Rin mounts a flying creature and activates magic. An instant transformation occurs immediately. Now he has risen into the air in magical attire. Miko Rin approaches closely, and Nidhogg reacts too late. Miko Rin dashed forward, striking with power and radiance, and the dragon petrified in surprise amid the attack. Her confidence shakes as fear creeps in, and doubt freezes her trembling body in midair. Sitting astride her monster, Miko Rin doubts her own worth, overwhelmed by fear and the dragon's might. Returning to memories of Medi's solo fight, she wonders how he finds the strength to stand alone against the enemy. Their gazes meet silently, his determination unwavering, her eyes searching for an answer, hope and strength in his eyes. Her heart responds with a voice. It reminds her that she is needed and no longer alone. Relying on memories, she makes a vow to gain strength and protect everyone she holds in her heart. With unwavering determination, she proclaims, her magic is her own, powerful enough to realize dreams. He pushes her to challenge fate itself, forcing her to rewrite the plot of Destin from scratch. Filled with radiant resolve, she boldly attacks the ignited dreams fully fuel her magical power. Miko Rin unleashes her strongest attack, channeling her entire world into a powerful starlight cannon. The beam bursts forward a spiral of magic and stars straight into the dragon's chest. His ultimate skill removed Nidhogg's defense, now even weak magic could accurately crush him. With a single point of life left, Nidhogg remains exposed. Miko Rin already knows his end. The final strike lands. As Meathog falls, the last words echo, game over. The beam pierces through Nidhogg's split ribcage as starlight tears his body from within. The form falters mid-flight, stunned by defeat, unable to comprehend the absurd final blow. He crashes into the ground with insane force, tearing the forest with a crater, and finishes everything with the final thunderous strike. Miko Rin silently observes, still digesting what happened, while her ally calmly returns beside her. With wide-open eyes, she confirms, it's true, they won and together they actually managed to complete the game. Embarrassed but proud, Miko Rin insists that she has grown, despite her flustered reaction to the praise. Distant observers freeze in admiration, realizing she really won, so their hopes were not in vain. The villagers erupt in celebration, joy overwhelms them. The nightmare threat of the dragon is over. Smiles and laughter flow freely as peace returns to all, and their victory finally becomes a shared reality. Together they greet the dawn, knowing the end of this battle means the beginning of something new. The sun rose over the peaceful lands, they survived fate and witnessed a new beginning. But he refused to stop. The plan was unfinished, so Mora was already waiting for them ahead. Together they stood under the sacred tree, ready to carve their own perfect ending further. Under the old sacred tree, she returned with him, reliving a childhood memory long erased from memory. She quietly recalled how she once visited here with her mother in this peaceful place, where the world then seemed kinder. Her magical deception suddenly vanished and she appeared in her true form, for exhaustion unexpectedly covered her body. Aware of her fatigue, she leaned on him. He allowed this moment, understanding how an ever heavier emotional burden weighed on her. He admitted that he was tired not because of magic, but because he carried hidden troubles alongside her. She praised his strength for having defeated the dog, and was amazed that he endured so much without any hesitation. He showed strength and she demanded payment, although she did not expect such a price to exist at all. Trembling, she feared that he had sacrificed his own life. He denied this, yet remained mysterious. Calmly, he explained the consequences, those that would tighten the muscles tomorrow, or perhaps the day after tomorrow. He exaggerated the pain throughout his body and complaints about his stomach. She looked intently, and without any admiration, she was unmoved by his ostentatious, pitiful stubbornness. She teased him, not knowing whether his complaints about pain made him strangely charming or simply utterly pathetic. He took her sarcasm as praise and holding on to that confidence, which confused and irritated her. When the world nearly ended, he laughed and called this whole dangerous stunt amazingly funny. For him, danger itself was that adrenaline. It made everything meaningful and something to remember. She smiled, even though she didn't want to, and understood. His foolishness strangely turned out to be something that calmed her despite everything they had to endure. A prolonged silence fell between them until her face became serious, her gaze fixed on the truth, and demanded real answers. She asked him directly, demanding the truth about who he really was under the power and this strange charm. Their eyes locked tightly, tension converged in the silence, and no one flinched until the unspoken doubts finally burst out. He faltered and replayed her question in his mind again, not knowing how to explain who he had become. Once he was feared as the final boss, but he suddenly realized he had never doubted his own identity. He admitted no longer a demon lord, but simply a man without a title. With a bold smile, he declared that he was the freest person in the whole world. His highest freedom was born when he rejected expectations and allowed himself to live so that nothing controlled him. She quietly accepted his answer, realizing that freedom can be both selfish and sincere. Finally smiling, she agreed. There is no person who lived freer, more foolish, and more honest than he did. She told him that it did not matter who he was, only that he saved her. Her words softened him despite everything he chose to protect, not to destroy. Nidhogg disappeared, but the sacred tree stood, slowly dying as a symbol of the irreversible law. Tears welled up as soon as she admitted their defeat. They failed to save the world tree. When the Maso Springs were no more, the future of their world was now measured in decades. She blamed herself, wishing she had acted earlier, yet doubted it would have changed the outcome. He silenced her sorrow, reminding her, this is not a bad ending. This was their ending. He drew her attention forward and urged her to look beyond guilt and loss. To her surprise, the world tree began to sprout again. Life was not over yet. The embracing branches, fire and blazes only scorched the crown. The world tree stood firm and continued to protect all life. She joyfully realized the world tree still lives, so this was not the end. Looking at the revived power, she made a bold decision about her future path. Declaring her desire to become a great queen, she quickly fell silent again. He teased her about the finals he disagreed with, playfully but stubbornly, as always. Smiling confidently, he vowed never to agree to a mediocre finale, not when he himself was involved in everything. Declaring the world his stage, he called Ophir to gift a dazzling finale. The spirit of the forest appeared gracefully, bowing low in submission with a mysterious smile and magical intent. A burst of radiant power flared. They were engulfed by incredible light, and a shockwave, leaving them exhausted. She covered her eyes with her palms, confused and frightened, because something unexpected began to change right before her. Petals swirled in her increasingly wide eyes, and what she saw next drained all her strength and breath. She froze in delight and raised her gaze, watching the petals fall like snow. Her breath caught. He quietly told about those trees and about the bloom that filled the earth all year round. The enlivened tree blossomed fully, rebirthing the legend, the fairy tale kingdom of Pinkheart. Her tearful eyes reflected the sky, the world reborn anew, overwhelming her with all its weight. Wherever she looked, flowers bloomed endlessly, filling the world with warmth, life, and anxious hope. He smiled, accepting her approval, and was proud that the story had reached a much better ending. When she faltered in her thoughts and chose her words, gratitude finally burst out, sincere, joyful, and coming straight from the heart. Their radiant gratitude echoed louder than any victory they had experienced and changed something forever. He froze in place, hand on his chest, overwhelmed by feelings he rarely allowed himself to face. In the prime of beauty, he recalled all the past, everyone he had destroyed, lost, or buried under guilt. After faking his own death, the former demon lord embraced peace and quietly enjoyed his new freedom. He smiled gently, remembering the hardships he had already overcome, and cherished this moment, one he never thought would be possible. Wandering among blooming trees, he shared peaceful days with comrades who accepted his renewed identity. She joyfully reunited with a long-lost friend, proving that bonds can survive even deception. Standing nearby, he realized his happiness was born not from victory but from choosing a better path. Looking far ahead, his faithful servant smiled proudly, feeling that peace had finally come to her wandering master. When the morning light spread over distant lands, a new chapter quietly ignited in the world. Tension returned. Officials reported urgent updates regarding the declaration of war on Nidhogg and his sudden events. The news spread Nidhogg was killed. Such a shocking victor was not a nobleman but Princess Nicholas of Fairies. The whisper recalled a fair-haired young man in a black cloak and memories, and quiet insights rose within her. She dismissed doubts and ordered a message to be sent, acknowledging the urgency of what was hidden behind the news. His order was clear: to invite the unknown heroes who defeated Nidhogg to the imperial palace. Intrigued and curious, she longed to meet the mysterious man in the black cloak. The crowd laughed loudly and cheered, while Maddie sat on the throne enjoying the feast that overflowed. The peasants praised his victories, reminding everyone who he once was, the Lord of Demons, a threat everyone feared. Grateful residents bowed low, thanking him for saving the kingdoms and reviving the legendary world tree. Maddie barely smiled and slowly sipped her drink, while the crowd's endless adoration never ceased for a moment. Finally, alone with her thoughts, Maddie slumped back, whispering, his victory brought only boredom. The celebrations went on too long, and Maddie nervously fidgeted, wondering how much longer the festival would last. No matter how much he liked this honor and admiration, he felt exhaustion. Endless compliments quickly became boring and empty. The garrison elf approached quietly, sensing his intentions, and cautiously asked if something was bothering him. She spoke lovingly about food, but Melly awkwardly changed the subject, hiding her true boredom. Watching the crowd wildly shouting at him, he admitted to himself fatigue. Constant adoration was exhausting, it brought no satisfaction. To lift his mood, the elf promised a funny story that once entertained everyone. She confessed that it concerned her beloved daughter, Macaulay's, immediately sparking Maddie's curiosity and doubts. Macaulay's bursts and blushes with shame, begging her mother not to voice her childish dreams aloud. Ignoring protests, the queen gently teased her daughter, literally showering Macaulay's with annoying care. Boredom again descends on Maddie. She dreams of absurd trials, for example, rainbow-knitted hugs just to break the monotony. Maddie wished for unexpected excitement, and suddenly a messenger ran in, bursting out with a scream and urgent news. The envoy apologized and reported, there is news from the new Empress Noha Alexander Lord Knight. When the name Alex was heard, Maddie froze, while others reacted with cautious surprise and curiosity. Mystery agreed to receive the envoy and asked for hospitality, while the escorts prepared for the meeting. Mikles expressed concern over the Empress's sudden approach, but Mandy dismissed all doubts with calm confidence. Maddie believed that the timing of the Empress's departure meant only curiosity about Nidhogg's defeat, nothing more significant. He explained Noah's diplomatic ties, emphasizing urgency but not touching the delicate pride of the fairy kingdom. Micheldes attacked her own reasoning, insisting that due to uncertainty one must act cautiously, and Maddie teased her with a direct reaction. Their meeting confirmed. Alexandra's envoy sought to learn details, and this proved that Maddie's previous analysis was absolutely correct. The envoy praised Mystery's insight, confirming that she had predicted Noah's motives with striking accuracy. The ambassador insisted the Empire would not remain indifferent, calling the negotiations diplomacy. Maddie felt something deeper, something awakened inside, and she realized it was not directly related to Nidhogg's defeat. He had no idea whether his unexpected victory triggered a hidden scenario beyond the usual path. The envoy called Mikles the killer of Nidhogg, but admitted he knew nothing about her mysterious companion. They described a man with silver hair in black, who officially invited both heroes to go to F. The messenger reported that Olxander personally wanted Meddy's presence, and this rare invitation shocked everyone. They wondered if Maddie could become the second hero, comparing with the described appearance of the envoys. Meddy recognized the name Alexandra and was surprised. She wanted to speak with him directly. He doubted her knowledge about his true identity, trying to understand what exactly kept her interested. Maddie realized Alexandra is leading the events herself, forging a new plotline beyond Riz Noah. Meddy confidently smiled. Alexandra's invitation promised excitement, and it broke his long streak of boredom. But Mysteria, despite all the fuss, surprised everyone, politely refused and just as politely declined Alexandra's invitation, despite his honor. She questioned Alexandra's power, doubting that the newly crowned empress could govern effectively. Rumor said during Alexandra's reign he was restrained by rebellion, and assassins repeatedly targeted her life. Mysteria's refusal was born out of love. She did not want to send her daughter into dangerous circumstances. Meddy focused on Alexandra's struggle, acknowledging her defiance despite continuous death threats and waves of criticism. Michaeles boldly declared her decision and insisted she would go even if there was danger. She insisted that diplomacy with Noah was necessary and refused to let the relationship deteriorate without cause. Mystery remained on edge, but Mandy calmly understood her doubts about Alexandra's unstable rule. Eventually, Mandy calmed them, asserting that Alexandra sought justice and promised to treat them fairly. Mikuli impatiently asked for permission and insisted that she could travel safely if Maddie was with her. With sincere determination, she declared that she finally wanted to serve and protect their kingdom. Her stubborn gaze revealed maturity, and Mystery quietly moved away, touched by her daughter's conviction. Mystery asked if Mikles would sacrifice herself for their people, thereby testing her resolve. Delighted, Michaeles agreed, and Mystery entrusted Maddie with the safety of her daughter during the journey. Mystery was deeply worried, fearing for the safety of her beloved daughter in the dangerous, bustling imperial city. Michaeles brushed off concerns, stating that it was time to prepare for their important journey. When they set off, the maid eagerly asked if they were really returning to the city. Meanwhile, hostile voices condemned Humanida, furiously angry at their audacity to summon such powerful guests. Maddie calmly clarified that they would go to the city, but in the palace they would avoid unnecessary attention. Maddie realized that this journey could follow an unknown plot, and then he would have to protect Michael. Despite doubts, he decided that he must accompany her, hiding his deeper fears. Her companion cheerfully encouraged her. Maddie looked satisfied even if trials awaited ahead. Leaving responsibilities behind, Maddie arranged for others to take care of matters in his absence. The Nicoles had prepared 2 well-stockpiled supplies, and eagerly announced that they were heading to the imperial city. Michaela's assumption that the road would take weeks might have been true, but Maddie confidently shortened it to 3 days. Confused, Michaeles doubted that their carriage could withstand such an impossible pace. Maddie revealed his plan: they would set off on Glacier, a reliable beast. Michaeles panicked at the very thought and began to wonder if Meddy wanted to cause trouble. Medji barely smiled and insisted cutting directly into Noah would be more interesting than going slowly. Nicholas wanted a slower route, but Meddy insisted on urgency. She pushed them on the road immediately. Her escort protested, bound by Alexandra's orders, but Maddie waved off her concerns with confidence. Yes, without any hesitation, Meddy flew up to Glacia, pulling Michaeles along, and they sharply took off. Mikley screamed in panic as glaciers rapidly soared upward, leaving the palace far below. Waving her hands as if begging for rescue, she promised her mother she would return, though fear filled her voice. Nicoli scolded Maddie, who, enraged, suddenly hastened their departure and caused unnecessary chaos. She demanded explanations, sensing that Maddie was also eager to reach the imperial city as soon as possible. Quietly, Maddie confessed his anticipation. This surprised Michaelis with its frankness about what he was truly waiting for at their final destination. Lost in thought, Maddie suspected that Alexandra might freely create destiny without being tied to a predetermined game plot. This idea confused him and left uncertainty whether Alexandra was another player capable of changing the course of events. Maddie, prepared for the unknown, smiled with determination and was ready to test his strength in a clash with trials. Looking at Alexandra, the new empress, he immediately recognized her significance and decided to support her path forward. They left the land of the Fae, flying south, avoiding deadly lands and heading straight for Noah. They reached the capital Gopher in the imperial city, surrounded by high walls and a dense crowd. Hovering over Gopher, he quietly surveyed the unchanging city, but his return came early. Their winged beasts swiftly descended, landing within the city limits. Dust rose as soon as hooves struck the ancient stone. In 3 days they arrived. Glazia, exhausted, set a new speed record before resting. Micker and Marvel, who knew his capital, were stunned to see it up close, live, and unadorned. She explained, her surprise at Gopher was forbidden, far from the fairy kingdom where she was raised. Suspiciously, she accused him of familiarity. He shrugged it off, hiding knowledge behind a mysterious, slightly amused smile. He teased her, reading food notes from her map and exposing her secret plan for sightseeing walks. Before she could snatch the map back, they were intercepted by city guards who demanded to know where they were from. The guards explained to Empress Alexandra, after recent killings of newcomers, everyone would be interrogated according to security protocol. He silently endured the suspicions, hiding his role in protecting Alexandra while avoiding unnecessary conflicts. He tried to explain calmly, but Mikoran stopped him, stepping forward with confident, bold courage. Announcing her royal kinship, Mikoran solemnly declared her arrival as invited guests of the Empress Alexandra herself. She showed an official letter with a seal, confidently and indisputably becoming proof of the Tsar's will, and finally dispelling all suspicions. Mikoran's bold exposure backfired as soon as the soldiers recognized her as a heroic figure. Sudden public attention immediately fell upon her. The guards eagerly welcomed her, impressed that she had defeated Nidhogg, and immediately offered escort for the entire cast. Trying to delay the trip to the castle, Mikoran asked for time to walk and sightsee, masking her awkward panic. The townspeople erupted with joy. They gathered a parade and prepared knights to accompany their hero. Maddie used the distraction to disappear unnoticed, waving goodbye while Mikoran panicked under the mounting pressure. Mikoran was stunned to learn that Maddie had still refused to go with her to the castle. She was frightened by the very thought she would have to face the Empress of Noah alone. Maddie calmed herself. Her level had already risen now. She easily surpassed most people both in strength and effortlessly. Despite pleas for support, Maddie only smiled and did not utter a single word in response to her desperate request. Without any hesitation, Mandy turned around and walked away, while Mikoran shouted after her, betrayed and completely bewildered. Under the spotlight, Mikoran's Maddie wandered alone, free to observe the state of the capital. He noticed how life was wildly growing on the streets, but beneath the cheerful daily habits, a hidden unrest was already trembling. News about Princess Mikoran's visit thundered through the town, echoing through the alleys and igniting excitement throughout the city. The fiery leader gathered a crowd, calling Mikoran and Alexandra to unite with allies against the 7 demon princes. The people roared with support, but Maddie silently watched, not knowing for sure what would unfold now. Maddie recognized the League of Heroes as members of the Resistance. Alexandra once summoned them against him. He pondered Alex's power in the game, doubting that she could effectively lead real people. Considering her difficulties, he thought, maybe she lacked not abilities but influence. But the city's laughter rang loudly, cutting into his heavy thoughts and cautious silence. He admitted Alexandra succeeded where he failed. She made the city calm, bright, and truly happy. Alexandra conquered hearts not by force, but by pure charisma, something Maddie had never truly had enough of. He remembered that day when hatred consumed him, turning loss into strength and grief into cruelty. Compared to the noble cause of Alexandra, he saw nothing in himself worthy of admiration or even any equality. He walked alone, accepting that he was never destined to become a hero in anyone's eyes. Then from memory or spirit came a bloody voice of Alexandra reminding him, "You can." He hesitated. Maddie froze before the narrow alley, a forgotten lane that pulled old memories from hiding places. He remembered childhood games, how he sneaked out of the castle to reach their secret hideout unnoticed. Those carefree days passed with primo fear gripped his chest, and now those names are distant, yet never forgotten. And her laughter, clearly echoing, again raised something deep while he silently stood once more. Now she had become a distant figure, quiet and lonely, looking at the city they once shared. When their eyes met, Mendy froze. Alexandra's gaze was painfully familiar, terribly recognizable. Her gaze each time raised something petrified in him, hid what he feared, and each time reminded, but he could not fully forget. He lied to himself. She is the enemy, the protagonist, the opposition. None of this is true. She was the girl who once held his hand and now stood before him again. She was the girl who once died in his arms long ago, under the roots of bleeding hope. He remembered her dying breath, her name, whispered through blood, forever engraved in his soul. And now, after 10 years, both of them were struck by revelation. The remembered past was about to surface. Prince Menace quietly sneaked into the library and found the forbidden book hidden on the shelf. The servants nervously whispered, afraid to be accused again as soon as the threat disappeared, and rumors about demons spread. The whisper, in a deep voice, was answered by a commoner who spoke about the cursed craft of creating demons, and doubted whether such creatures even existed. A dark rumor spread. Prince Menace was supposedly prophesied from birth as the harbinger of a future catastrophe. The man overheard everything. He quietly went outside, his face revealing nothing, tightly clutching the book they feared. The maidservants froze in panic, but Menace spoke calmly, saying he had come only for the books. He promised to return quietly, then left while they watched him in shocked silence. Making his way through the corridors, he endured threats, meeting the usual whispers and cold glances with restrained submission. He knew the rumors about creating demons, dark magic, and fear clung to his name. Before the family portrait, Menace groaned bitterly, a cursed heir who stained the hero's bloodline. Staring at the portrait of his ancestors, Menace flinched when a loud, reproachful voice echoed from behind. Without warning, a dark figure struck and knocked Menace down, throwing him with furious force across the entire floor space. The attacker, his father, stood looming and cold, watching Menace's presence inquisitively as if dealing with a worthless thief who trespassed. Beaten and knocked off his feet, Menace groaned faintly, weakly calling before him the cruel man, his father. But the king barked in response. He rejected. Their bond refused to acknowledge Menace as his son. But Menace raised his head, covered in blood yet stubborn. He met the gaze and did not look away, with unwavering determination. The enraged king charged again, but the appearance of a knight abruptly ended the attack and silenced everyone. The knight addressed the king calmly, announced the arrival of the Lord Knight, and sharply ended the confrontation. Cold orders: hold the triple lock, lock the doors, isolate the prince's room, open only to visitors. The king's cold gaze pierced the defiant look of Menace. Silent rage grew between the bloodlines. Before leaving, the king threw the last threat. Next time freedom will cost him too dearly. He turned over but still clenched the book as tightly as he could. Menace held on to the only thing he had left. 2 armored guards led him away. Their silence hurt more than the king's bloody words. Under humiliating glances, the moment of threat accepted a cruel truth. His existence was unwanted in every heart. Behind bars, under armed guard, from somewhere in the darkness, the threat fixed its gaze on the one who turned this towering fortress into his cave. Despite pleas and harsh orders, the guards sealed the door, cutting off Menace his only freedom. When he was left alone, he whispered quietly and revealed hidden creatures that had quietly nestled in the toys. 2 small creatures, Primo and Afara, merged joyfully, bringing warmth to the already lonely world of threat. They smiled through bruises, and the threat assured them, his pain means nothing as long as they are safe. Holding his creations close, Men finds comfortone that the hateful world beyond the walls of his chamber does not give. He quietly entrusted his pain, recalling how others branded him evil, not understanding. And yet he held on to hope, dreaming of becoming someone like an emperor, not that terrible threat. Starting everything from scratch, he opened his book, determined to create friends and rewrite destiny. Testing a new spell, Minas tried something unprecedented: to summon life from a single image without any memory. Eagerly flipping through his book, he chose a legendary figure to call as his ally. With unwavering determination, he activated the spell, hoping that his first creation based on the image would truly succeed. The fox spirit materialized in a flash, Ajitsune, small and graceful, with modest but unique characteristics. The animal sniffed the air, its eyes watchful, and he, delighted by the successful creation, bowed in reverence. He rejoiced, and the men along with his comrades celebrated. The experiment worked, and a new friend was born. Minas proudly and amazedly lifted the fox spirit despite being only D rank. Its power turned out to be considerable. He named the creature Fiori, proclaiming their bond as the beginning of a lasting friendship. To threaten, Fiori was not just magic for him, she became a partner in the dream of heroism. With joy turning into determination, Menas asked Fiore to grant strength for their future. Who, remaining outside, unaware of what had risen inside, the guards stood their ground watching the prince they considered powerless. Deciding to escape, Menas asked Fiore to cast an illusion and help him break free and flee. Fiore's body trembled with magical energy as the illusion spell wove around her radiant state. A stream of light and mist began to distort the guard's vision outside the tower. Menas froze for a moment, but immediately dashed forward, not sure if Fiore's distraction would be enough for the guards not to recover too quickly. While the guards remained unsuspecting, Fiore jumped into the field of view below, diverting their gaze from Menas's window. The threat silently slipped through the window, surprised at how effective the illusion proved to be. For the first time he stepped outside Freely, the escape was complete, and his heart flew light, full of hope. Chanting together with his comrades, he praised their teamwork, proud of the company they had become. He looked back only Unseen stealthily gathered himself, for no cruelty would stop the hero's future path. Shining with a smile, Menas dashed forward. Tade training had started, and it was not just an escape. Filled with a desire to help, Menas led his companions into the city hoping to find someone truly in need. Though he searched all the alleys, no one who needed his help was found. As soon as suspicion crept into him, he heard faint sobbing echoing from a dark corner. There in the shadow, a young girl was crying alone, lost, frightened, and completely ignored. Menas's eyes widened with quiet, urgent anxiety. The first mission had truly begun, and it was serious. The threat approached the crying girl cautiously, not knowing how to help her, yet still hesitating to leave. He asked about her parents and home, but each question made her tremble and shudder. Sensing there was something deeper and more dangerous, Menens realized she apparently did not want to return home at all. The suspicion was confirmed with a quiet nod, and she chose the alley instead of where she had come from. Understanding her silence, the threat offered comfort, no answers, only warmth, gently wrapping her in tender embraces. Hugged, the girl sat alone in silence. He found her and ordered her to follow him. He explained staying in the shadow would only make things worse. They needed to get out of this dark alley. She trembled and hesitated, unsure if she could endure. He gently asked if she could stand. His hand calmly reached forward, encouraging her. Everything would be fine if she tried. With a bright smile, he promised that they would go together. Hope slowly returned to her eyes. Their hands crawled towards each other uncertainly, but with hope narrowing the distance between fear and trust. Fingers finally touched, he smiled quietly. She stood up and slowly stepped into the beam. Together they moved forward, and the steps echoed, two souls no longer lonely in the darkness. He remembered that day. If he had not acted, both could have remained broken and lost. And now they stood side by side, looking at the wide world waiting just beyond the wall. She gently pressed against him, looking ahead, and a new world unfolded before her eyes. He cheerfully turned and noticed her silence. She was no longer crying, the tears had stopped. One day he asked her name, hesitated at first, then she gathered her strength and finally answered. With courage, she answered clearly and distinctly for the first time. Ali, she said, her voice trembling. For her, everything began right here, a prequel to Risno, written only for her. They stood side by side, holding hands, and ahead awaited a journey that shaped his future reign. Ali firmly held his hand. They walked calmly, both unaware of each other's hidden truth. He introduced himself briskly, yet hesitated tremblingly before telling everything. Ali listened attentively. She was interested, but still understood nothing. He twitched inwardly from panic, afraid of how she would react if she found out he was once Mina's Nala. He struggled with the answer, but quickly stated that his name was Mel. She looked embarrassed, but remained calm. Ali quietly repeated his false name again. He nodded silently with relief, hiding his past once more. He nervously scratched the back of his head, confused about how to start after suddenly bringing her here. He excitedly showed the slope of the hill as his secret hideout, a place once used for practical hero training. Suddenly, a cat-like creature jumped on him, shocking everyone with its sudden, incredibly bright appearance. Overwhelmed with excitement, he apologized as his magical companions returned, lively, yet clearly irritated by his absence. Ali cautiously lowered her gaze when one creature approached her. It first came carefully, and upon recognizing her, showed no hostility. He lunged forward, defending himself, insisting these were demons but good ones, with no intention to harm. Ali slowly approached the cat demon. Her face was unreadable as he waited calmly. Then she gently smiled, impressed by the charm of the creature, and quietly called him cute. He nodded with relief, admiringly, and touched. She accepted them without fear and without judgment. He quietly explained. It was the faithful, powerful companion of his comrade and truly the dearest to his heart. With a confident smile, he asked Ali if she wanted to join their hero training. Together they read a story about Memphis, Noah, about the first hero who built the kingdom of Noah. He enthusiastically told how Memphis helped many to the point of founding the kingdom after the victory over the monsters. Clenching his fist, he declared a dream to become strong and kind like Memphis. He smiled broadly and brightly, asking if his dream sounded cool. Ali stared at him. It was clear that it deeply impressed him. She was grateful to him for the support. He smiled brightly and prepared to train with a wooden sword. He admitted that he lacked sparring partners. He often trained alone, and his demon friends silently watched. They sat sadly, feeling useless. He reassured them it was not their fault that they had no hands. While he turned away, Ali silently noticed a barrel full of spare training weapons. She confidently took a step forward, gripping the sword tightly, and asked if she could be his partner. Ali blushed but nodded confidently, accepting his offer decisively and gripping his hand firmly. He blazed with excitement and raised the sword high as soon as the training began with real enthusiasm. He rose gently and nudged her to take cover. She focused, blocking every strike at the cost of effort. Enchanted by her instincts, he praised her unexpected skill, not even suspecting the hidden natural talent. He cheerfully demonstrated another technique, inviting her to mimic his stance increasingly confidently and with growing joy. He showed a complex sword combo moving quickly and smoothly, forcing Ali to keep up. Ali listened attentively, calculating the strategy, and resolutely kept her gaze on the technique. She repeated the move, flawlessly astonishing him with precise speed and form beyond all his expectations. He openly praised her, impressed by her talent with the sword as if it awakened by itself. Thanks to her mastery, he smiled brightly and vowed to continue improving together with her. Ali smiled quietly. Her eyes shone with joy and gentle pride from having learned something new. He introduced a harsher technique, warning her, but she followed closely, maintaining unwavering attention. Their swords barely clanged together. She decisively rushed into battle, stunning him again with sharp instincts and strength. Laughing cheerfully, she lightly pushed him back. He fell to the ground, smiling at the complete defeat. Sitting next to her, he sighed contentedly and admitted how pleasant it was to train with someone. Blushing and hugging her knees, Ali confessed that she had fun. Her voice became quiet and soft. He smiled warmly and sat beside her, his voice becoming gentle as he prepared a question. He asked why she cried when he first found her, and care was heard in his tone. Cautiously, he asked if something painful had prevented her from returning home, carefully watching her facial expression. Alia hesitated, her voice trembling. She tried to explain something, but the words painfully stuck in her throat. Ali confessed that her strange ability made her different from everyone else, and even her own family did not accept it. She explained that they needed a useful power, and when her power gave them nothing, they called her worthless. Though she had fled, she knew, running away would not erase either her ability or the pain. She pondered aloud whether they would accept her more if she had never had it. He sat next to her. Satellites were around, and firmly said that it was not her fault. He insisted that she had no choice, and no one should be held responsible for abilities given from birth. Humiliated and angry, he questioned the cruelty of branding a child as unnecessary just because she is different. He boldly promised, as soon as someone dares to offend her again, he will immediately stand up for her. Ali began to crumble from within, doubting her own worth, but he decisively stepped forward and without hesitation began to soothe her. He declared that she had already become part of his heroic company and even a true friend. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she whispered thanks, finally feeling truly seen and accepted. The bell rang throughout the city while they watched the sunset in calm, thoughtful silence. He gently reminded her to return home before it got dark. She hesitated but quietly agreed. They stood shoulder to shoulder under the tree and did not want this moment to end. They spoke together, laughed. She blushed, offering to go first. Her courage blossomed. Before leaving, he nervously asked if they could meet again tomorrow at the same place. He said quietly only if she could, not wanting to pressure or upset her. Overwhelmed with emotions, Ali screamed in response that she wanted to see him again more than anything. Realizing her words, he blushed all over and without hesitation, shouted loudly that he agreed. They both lit up with smiles, promised to meet again here tomorrow like new friends reborn anew. Ali tries to return to the castle unnoticed. Sneaking tiptoe past the guards, they stand nearby and suspect nothing. A stern soldier called her name and demanded an explanation for why she was absent from sword training. Someone among the adults sharply questioned where she had been, and again reproached her for missing her planned royal training. Two noble ladies maliciously gossiped behind her back, calling her strange and different without a drop of sympathy. Ali clutches her chest. These words hurt her, but despite the pain, a weak, brave smile remains on her face. The crier demands that Alexandra continue relentless training, warning her about the future responsibility as empress. Alex lowers her gaze, overwhelmed by a wave, until someone gently soothes her. It's okay, you can stop for a little while. A beautiful woman authoritatively intervenes, asks for sympathy and reminds. Everyone knows that Alex is still getting used to this foreign land. Alex hesitates, but the woman lovingly offers to give her a ride back, removing objections that almost shattered the night. In a private conversation, Alex addresses her mother. She so wants to share her emotions and personal feelings about what happened today. Alex's mother kneels behind her, gently embraces her, and her face is calm and full of understanding. And the mother soothes Alex, gently patting her and encourages her to rest after exhausting training. Smiling, she encourages Alex to hold on tight. Her caring presence relieves the young girl's anxiety. She speaks about fate. Alex is destined to inherit powerful abilities tied to the future of their kingdom. While they embrace tightly, the mother promises unconditional support throughout Alex's path of growth and duty fulfillment. Alexandra accepts her fate, finds strength in her mother's words, and embraces her royal duty. The ceremonial document is presented for signing, a sign of an official agreement between two powerful kingdoms. Two nobles sign the document, completing a significant alliance with stern determination and political intent. Pope Nifro IV endorses the agreement, officially proclaiming the alliance with religious and political authority. Alexandra and Menessa revealed themselves as brides of royal blood, uniting their kingdoms by an arranged marriage pact. In the Grand Hall, the church authority officially confirms the engagement of Prince Menacin to Alexandra before the nobles. The crowned man, apparently a king or one of the nobles, reacts grimly, and his lips barely move downward. Under the moonlight, Prince Menes and his magical animals prepare to sneak into the castle. While Menes sneaks, a guard brings dinner and orders him to obey and remain silent. The pale root of submission. After the guard leaves, the threat mocks the order and openly plans to sabotage it tomorrow. Alexandra lies in bed, clutching the blanket, eyes open, lost in deep thought. Through the wide glass window, Alexandra is seen wrapped in blankets alone in her luxurious bedroom. A mysterious figure in a cloak stealthily glides through the castle corridors. Shadows hide the face and intent. The hidden figure reaches the huge doors and cautiously peeks inside, appears halted but determined. And Alexandra, still in bed, barely moved, her face softened as if sensing someone nearby. Ali lies in bed thinking about Mina's, where his phantom figure appears in her dream, and he smiles at her. Danger stretches through her memories, and Ali smiles, warmly encouraged by the bond they have already built. In their dreams, they sleep peacefully side by side, connected by hope for a meeting tomorrow. Mina slowly woke up in Grand Castle. Sunlight streamed through the huge spires directly into his bedroom. Resting calmly beside his comrades, he greeted the new day, unaware of the fate the next one would bring. A cheerful friend called from behind the door, and Mina's jerked sharply from the unexpected liveliness. He recalled yesterday's farewell, the girl's promise that they would definitely meet again tomorrow. Lonely by the window, Mines quietly smiled. The sun warmed thoughts of her gentle goodbye. Mina's rushed further from the mine, with his companion's breath taken away by another secret escape to meet Ali again. And as soon as he reached the meeting place, the field fell silent. She was not there. He waited patiently, convincing himself. She remembers their promise and is about to appear. He smiled nervously, wondering if something had delayed her, still clinging to reliable explanations and excuses. Panic overwhelmed him. What if she finds out that he is Mina's Noah, the Lord of Demons? Hearing sharp footsteps, Mina's quickly turned around. He immediately took into account Fifi's frightened reaction and sharp barking. To his surprise, Ali appeared at the edge of alley, breathing heavily and clearly rushing here on the run. Gasping for breath, she apologized for being late, her eyes filled with nervous anxiety. Breathing out with relief, Mina's abruptly lied, embarrassed, trying to hide how long he had been waiting, and with reliable panic. Since then, every day they parted with smiles and promised, "See you tomorrow." Trying to keep her word, Ali returned every day, greeting everyone with a bright, joyful wave. They spent every day together, and Mina silently longed for these peaceful moments to never end. During a walk together, they suddenly noticed a suspicious person. The girl politely, as best she could, quickly tried to avoid. Nervously, he suggested she go through the alleys, fearing recognition, and tried to casually divert her attention. Although confused, Ali quietly agreed, trusting his guidance without any questions, even despite the sudden tension and haste. Mina's feared that Ali would reveal his identity. The demon lord was secretly wandering outside the castle walls. He could not risk her reaction if she found out the truth about his real name. Even the thought that her refusal could scare him and stop everything they had so slowly built together. Honestly, it could have ended everything. For this reason, he forced a smile and buried the truth in careful silence. But unexpected news appeared. His engagement was already finalized, and it crossed out everything without his consent. Mina's refused the imposed engagement, seeking only friendship with Ali without his father's politics. Ali's smile became his anchor. He wished for this moment to never end. Every meeting was precious, every farewell filled with hope, and this was the only desire in his heart. Meanwhile, the political talks quieted down while the kings exchanged courtesies, unaware of what Minas was hiding. One king laughed, not suspecting that his daughter's fiancé was already crowned. The fate of Prince Minas was sealed in silence. The kings exchanged official compliments, each hiding true intentions behind smiles and polished diplomatic words. One king gladly agreed and was about to bring his daughter to meet her future fiancé as soon as possible. Unaware of the growing tension, they thought the negotiations were progressing without any problems. The noble assistant confused everything. He decided that the engagement was truly meant for Prince Minas's own happiness. And the king coldly denied this, and by this showed how little he really understood his own son. The king cut coldly, cutting off any warmth as petty sentimentality. For him it was only a tool. He never considered Minas as people, only a puppet used to fulfill his ambitions. The engagement was fake. The Traplord Knight had no idea whom they were marrying off. It was a strategy, not unity, to marry off Minas to control the Lord Knight's throne from within. Ironically, he claimed that the Lord Knight planned the same. Both kings conspired, planning conquest, covering everything with alliance and ceremonies. The king laughed at the very thought that Mina could change him and dismissed it as a joke. His rage exploded. No one, especially Minas, would ever take the throne from him. Remaining in a tenacious obsession, he whispered madness. The throne belongs to him and only him forever. The royal advisor calmed him. The engagement guarantees the future security of their kingdom through the alliance. With a crooked smile, the king agreed, and behind calm, collected eyes hid much darker intentions. The king saw that confidence and feared ruin. He clung to divine favor as to a lifeline. The priest promised wealth and led the king according to the oracle's prophecy to calm his paranoia. Smiling impossibly, the king swore to exterminate anyone who dared to challenge his rule or fate. Hades questioned the future of Prince Minas, whether he too would become a victim of paranoia. The king dismissed concerns about Minas. He was useful now but easily discarded once his purpose was fulfilled. Mina happily resolved the problem in secret and was proud that no one noticed their small deed. Ali asked why he kept everything secret and could not understand why helping others had to be hidden or disguised. Confused, he lies to us, calling it training for secret missions, but in reality he diverts from the true reason. Ali guessed that the truth was that their companions were monsters, only it could not be publicly acknowledged. In panic, he rushed to justify himself, but Minas was not allowed, and he took the blame, desperately trying to protect them from judgment or shame. With difficulty, words came through, and Minas tried to confess the burden but feared losing her trust. Ali quietly asked if he would agree not to insist, but still let her in. She quickly recoiled, admitting that she too had her secrets, and offered him space if silence was safer that way. But still she opened her heart and promised to listen if it would help ease his pain. Her kindness confused him. She did not demand the truth, she only offered a place where he would be understood. Ali smiled warmly, calming Minas with his sincerity and unwavering readiness to listen. Her kindness left Minas speechless. He was stunned. Someone could accept him without knowing everything. He walked slowly, plagued by doubts, while his companions looked up and felt his emotions changing. Returning to Ali, he asked if she knew why dark magic users were afraid. She quietly answered, "Dark magic distorts, twists hearts, and leads those closest to becoming demons. Demons are beings born of the darkness of magic." She listened carefully and did not utter a sound. He hovered above the floor, shrouded in shadow. This was his mysterious power, his skill. With dark magic and the creation of monsters, he forged allies for himself. Each creature appeared from nothing. Even his parents feared him. They saw his abilities and treated him as something inhuman. Fearing his powers, they locked him in a hidden castle cut off from everything. He named his name Minasavu while she froze in place, struck by the sudden truth. The impoverished heir to the throne of the kingdom of Noah, whom everyone hated, finally revealed his true identity. He asked if she already hated him. His voice trembled under a forced bitter smile. Ilya's gaze softened and calmly she replied that she did not hate him. Her voice did not tremble, steady and clear. When he asked if she was afraid, she raised her eyes and firmly said no. Ali stood very close and gently reassured him, "You are a good child, Mia, I know." Tears welled up and his hands clenched. He asked if she would give up their friendship. She reached out and firmly squeezed his trembling palms. "No, I will not," she answered calmly. I, smiling with closed eyes, told him that they would always remain friends. Nothing will change that. Tears flowed endlessly while he quietly whispered words of gratitude. For the first time in his life, he truly felt accepted. Ali and Mina stood quietly nearby, holding hands, and behind them watched his calm, loyal monster companions. Mina smiled gently through tears, She was overwhelmed with relief from acceptance after years of fear and loneliness. Ali gently corrected him and smiled, addressing him properly, acknowledging his true nature with warmth. As soon as they connected more deeply, a wave of energy suddenly burst nearby, and a moment of silence was shattered by force. A strong explosion threw us upward, and Minas instinctively shielded Ali, looking around for danger. Sudden force tore Ali away, separating their hands before Minas could react or resist. Smoke filled the courtyard. Mina was frantic, wildly searching for her, calling her name as panic grew within him. Ali, restraining herself, tried to speak. Her eyes widened as soon as she recognized the official appearance of her kidnapper. The knights, acting swiftly, identified themselves as the royal guard carrying out the queen's own order. They explained the queen's fear after Ali disappeared. Ali was stunned, her mother served. The knights realized, Ali with Minas. They were gripped by anxious shock. His forbidden power and dark skill betrayed him. Despite Ali's protests, they forcibly took her, deciding to report everything to the king at all costs. Minas froze as her voice echoed down the corridor, and she screamed with all her might while being dragged away. The royal guard returned with Princess Alexandra safely escorting her through the palace gates, and she remained unharmed. The council reprimanded Alexandra for her recklessness, while the guards meanwhile advanced with an urgent and stern message. Shock pierced the hall when the captain confirmed the dangerous secret, the one they had seen with their own eyes. Guards accused Prince Menes of using black magic against Alexandra. She immediately screamed, rejecting this. Trembling, Alexandra defended herself, insisting that the dark forces of Minas had never threatened her. He was her friend. Alexandra begged in despair, claiming that Mins was evil, and her words made everyone noticeably pale. The king ordered the guards to block the building and immediately prepare to depart to a safe place. Her father warned Alexandra that users of black magic are dangerous, and Menace was clouding her feelings. Alexandra was temporarily locked up while her father called a mage to reveal possible manipulations. Despite her screams, the king blamed himself for letting danger near his daughter and apologized. Her father closed the door and ordered Alexandra to forget Minas's request, the one that devastated her. Alexandra rushed to the sealed doors, begging her parents not to abandon her and not to leave Menace unfairly. She wept alone and pressed, "Minas is not evil," begging someone to believe her words. Filled with guilt, she apologized to her sister and took all the blame upon herself. She did not notice how early Alexandra began to feel pain. Their father admitted that he hastily sought a partner for Alexandra, and it was this that pushed Malik to manipulative lies. Clenching his teeth, the king uttered the name of the true inspirer, Malik Noah. Malik outlined a plan for domination, to capture Lord Knight and without obstacles cross the Ether Sea upon summons. As his ambitions grew, a soldier with an anxious look suddenly burst into the room and interrupted his plans at the worst moment. The emperor disdainfully pushed the messenger away and threatened punishment if the urgent news did not please him. Suddenly the king appeared without warning and directly addressed Melek with a firm, unwavering decision in his voice and gaze. Emperor Melek coldly greeted Lord Knight, inquired about his purpose, and suggested resuming negotiations at another time. Lord Knight revealed that Menace has a tendency toward dark magic and forced Melek to abruptly fall silent cautiously, never losing sight of this for a moment. Melek dismissed these words, stating that his Nohik bloodline has only light, and called it an unfounded rumor. Enraged, Lord Knight accused Melek's son of intending to use dark magic against his innocent daughter. Melek shuddered, clearly struck by the brazen accusation, and could not respond to the king's pointed challenge. Lord Knight accused Melek of hiding the truth about the threat to seize control through Alexander. Melek's boldly confident in himself reminded Lord Knight that the engagement is sacred. It was sealed by holy witnesses and divine law. He threatened political consequences, warning Lord Knight that by annulling it he would lose trust, power, and international respect. Lord Knight rejected the threat and refused to sacrifice his daughter to the monster for political gain. Although he knew the cost, he stood his ground. Lord Knight would not renounce righteousness for the sake of peace. Lord Knighton shouted this finally. The engagement between Alexandra and Menace is officially cancelled and considered null and void. Turning away, he regretted ever believing that peace between Lord Knight and the Melek Empire was possible. Melek boiled with outrage and distrust, furiously angry that some petty king dared to humiliate him before his own court. Rage caught up with Melek as soon as he jumped outside, demanding like a whirlwind where his minis immediately. Bursting in instantly, Melek saw. His son sat silently, unaware of the storm already surrounding him. Melek fiercely struck Minas, wildly outraged by the humiliation, not realizing that the figure before him was a fake. Screams broke out as the body dissolved. It was not a threat, but a disguised impostor, a constructed imitation. Furious, Melik restrained everyone with chains, declaring that they were useless. They failed to see the deception. Melik demanded answers from the prophet Nephilo, and he calmly stated that a new prophecy had appeared. The prophecy warned, "A threat will break loose and unleash disaster. It will shake the world and burn it to ruins." Millikan, unable to hold back, shouted at Nephilo, demanding an explanation for why the prophecy deceived his expectations. Nephilo calmly stated that the prophecy was not false, everything was unfolding as it should. Melek realized this chaos would provide grounds for sanctions and make him a savior in the eyes of the whole world. Nephilo promised Melek world domination, proclaiming that he was destined to surpass even the hero Mephisto. Finally, Nephilo declared everything divine, not strategy or manipulation, but the will of God. Melek gathered his spirit and confidently declared that his throne and power had not wavered for a moment after the defeat. Again bursting into rage, Melek ordered all soldiers under his command to immediately prepare for mobilization. His voice thundered, "Find Minas, capture him alive and bring him to the throne." Melek's anger flared even more. He ordered to maim Menes if necessary, leaving the final blow to himself. Nephilo calmly watched as Meliek walked away and said goodbye to him, while nearby a mysterious girl silently observed this. Lafris admitted that there was no prophecy and doubted whether telling Milik the truth would be the right thing to do. Nephilo, who was secretly plotting conspiracies, revealed his plan, to allow the kingdoms to destroy each other and rule alone. With a deadly threat as the last obstacle, Nephilo decided to eliminate him before he could resist. Using mind control magic, Nephilo whispered orders and forced the knight to relentlessly hunt Minas. He concluded the order with one final phrase, "Kill everyone who dares to stand in the way." The hypnotized knight loudly repeated his deadly orders, shocking others while Nephilo silently disappeared. Confused soldiers questioned the command, not understanding why the escort suddenly turned into a bloody chase after people. The entire palace echoed with one phrase, an army growing and quietly whispering it again and again. "Capture Prince Menes." Locked in the vault, Alexander heard distant commotion and became worried as the unrest grew. The guards confirmed strange behavior, civilians and knights silently repeated it, and Prince Minas was captured as if by a curse. Alexander ordered preparations to leave Noaa, urging everyone to be vigilant and avoid the current chaos. Feeling the tension, she turned sharply and ordered to be gathered urgently for immediate departure. Noticing the crowd standing mesmerized below, Alexander Panic Menace found himself in immediate and deadly serious danger. Her eyes widened in shock, and she dashed out of the palace, deciding to act before it was too late. Somewhere someone clenched their fists and called Ali. The tension spread through the city. Menace frantically prowled the narrow alley, impatiently calling Ali's name, not knowing where she had disappeared. Her kidnapping does not let go. The men interrogate strange people about where they took Alec. He pushed through the noisy crowd, his eyes twitching convulsively in search of even a single clue. Blinded and confused, Manus froze mid-step when the armored knight suddenly blocked the narrow passage in the alley. Shadows closed in, voices echoed the same command, capturing Prince Minas and his hidden royal essence surfaced. Frightened and cornered, Mina screamed as a burst of magic erupted outward in despair. Fior, the fox spirit, intervenes just in time and disperses the knights with flashing energy. During the escape, Menace threw questions at his father about his involvement and the strange presence of townspeople during the capture. Knights also arrived, orders were shouted, but Fiora's threatening, steadfast defense once again stood in the way. They barely escaped capture. Suddenly Fiora collapsed right in the middle of running, exhausted, wheezing, and Menace froze in shock, fearing the worst. Menace gently held Fiora safely, understanding she had fainted from exhaustion after expending all her magic. He whispered thanks, apologized, and took all the blame upon himself, saying it was because of him she was in such a state, and because of both of them danger loomed over them. Trembling from his own breath, Menace heard footsteps coming through the repeated command. Capture Prince Menace. Prince Menace was approaching. Cornered, Menace trembled. The eerie song of captivity echoed from everywhere. Before he could react, he was spotted and someone shouted, revealing his location to the pursuers. The chase quickly closed in, and the threat retreated even deeper into a dead-end alley. As soon as they reached him, a girl with long hair appeared before them and apologized for being late. With a bright smile, she extended her hand and nudged Menace to slip away quickly right beside her. Ali urgently snatched Menace from under their noses, realizing they were about to be found and a safe place to hide was needed. Menace felt a wave of relief. He realized that Ali had survived and was standing right in front of him. He noticed her wounds. Ali explained that she escaped injury by jumping out of the window alone. During the escape, they overheard in a narrow alley how soldiers repeatedly ordered, without hesitation, capture Prince Menace. Ali assured that everything was fine, but she feared how quickly and relentlessly everything around them was spinning out and intensifying. Menace suspected his father's involvement, realizing the chaos was not accidental. Someone inside had planned and stirred it up. He believed that the escape from the castle had pushed his father to give the order for extreme measures against him. Returning to Ali, Menace prepared to speak. He already knew what he had to do. He handed her the creature and urged her to flee before it became too late. Menace explained that he was the target, and that staying with him only increased the danger for everyone. Menace admitted his father hated him. Capture meant punishment unknown to anyone, but he could not run forever. He smiled through the pain, asking Ali to protect the creatures he could no longer safeguard. Suddenly the creatures jumped on Menace, cutting off his farewell with their unexpected and chaotic affection. Menace explained that his cold behavior was to protect them from getting involved in his problems. Ali reminded him, they are brothers in arms, all members of the hero's team, sticking together and facing danger head-on. Ali reminded Menace of his own words, heroes protect their friends, now it is their time, too. Menace hesitates, afraid of the chase. He understands, shelter won't save them, they will be found anyway, no matter what. Ali smiled resolutely and suggested escaping so far away that no one could ever catch them. She frightened him. She seemed to freeze from her determination. He responded only with a smile and quietly, gently removed his fear. They agreed to run somewhere far away where no one knew them, so all royal pursuits would not scare them. They dreamed of joining a guild, becoming true adventurers and wandering freely like Memphis Noah once did. Hope lit up Ali's face, and she asked if such a future could become a beautiful reality. When the men did not believe in such a dream, Ali insisted, it is possible if they believe together. With open arms, she declared that their strength is in unity. He finally answered confidently, yes. Danger realized. His friends, especially Ali, found him a place to belong, not in the castle. Menace began to believe that together with friends, it is real. Even dreams that seemed impossible to achieve became attainable. For the first time, a genuine smile broke out on his face, and he finally felt what freedom was. But suddenly in the darkness, soldiers surrounded him and, thunderously issuing a freezing command, rushed to capture Prince Menace alive. When hands reached forward, Ali burst between them with a threat, covering him without hesitation. The knight's voice coldly cut off with one word, kill. The situation became truly dangerous. Ali intercepted the blow aimed at Menace. The blade pierced her, cutting through her body without a single word. The knight's sharp command echoed, kill everyone who stands in the way, justifying merciless violence. Blood gushed from her lips, and the threatening gaze, frozen, fell on her eyes wide open in shock and disbelief. Ali's body suddenly went limp, and her voice faded, only blinking at him with a trembling breath. Owl. Surrounded by soldiers, Mina screamed in pain, lunged down to her fallen body and frantically begged, wherever the body might be. Menace jerked wildly while armored soldiers restrained him. His gaze was fixed on Ali's collapsed body. Sudden gusts of wind shake the battlefield's sweat, and the knights are forced to stop and look around anxiously. In the whirl of chaos, Menace crouched low and held Ali close as something inside him began to shift. He lowered his head, casting aside hesitation, and grief and rage rose higher than anything he had ever felt. Blood spilled below as the threat clenched its fist and prepared to cast off its former self. He held Ali closer, activated crime, and the dark power came alive. The synthesis started, and a strange sign began to form right in the air. A sudden giant burst of black energy surged upward in a whirlwind, cracking the ground and shocking the knights. In his mind, Menace saw vision Ali calmly smiling and reaching for his hand again. Her smile still lingered in his memory, while his own expression shifted from joy to doubt. In the mental world, she reached out to him, but he quietly turned away from her. The calm gaze of Ilya faded, blood dripped from her mouth, and her image shattered in Menace's mind. Standing over her lifeless body, the threat looked down. Silent sorrow and irreversible loss covered everything around. Tears hidden by shadow, he whispered an apology, his voice trembling with guilt and broken grief. Darkness tore around him with fierce power. The body bent under the might summoned by unbearable grief and wild rage. The restrained power burst uncontrollably, smashing the knights and turning the battlefield into chaos and ruin. The body of Menace twitched and twisted with furious force, fangs bared and eyes spiraled until monstrous rage devoured him. His hands grotesquely changed. Claws unnaturally grew, signaling that the irreversible transformation was already consuming his fragile humanity. Tears ran down his altered face as he accepted defeat. He would never be able to be here. The roots wildly surged forward, thunderously throwing soldiers aside, so chaos erupted fully, and the frightened prince realized enemies were chasing him to capture him. Chains once bound his body. When the guards closed in, hatred boiled. They demanded he identify himself and threatened arrest. Then memories burned, friends screamed, and wounds tore his body. His rage flared stronger and stronger as the nobility shouted, "Monster!" retreating until his presence repelled them. Dark shadows stretched across the ground, and the weight of his hatred and remorse became unbearable. Standing before the throne, he carried her broken body and cursed his own weakness that had failed to protect her. The tyrant laughed mockingly as the shackles tightened around him, calling him a vile monster, revealing a twisted intent. With poisonous fury, the tyrant proclaimed the throne unconditional and demanded death for the prisoner for his worthless existence. The chains instantly broke, flashes of power burst out, enveloping the unconscious girl in his arms. The tyrant's face boldly flashed and shattered into shock as he realized his enemy's powers were greater than he had expected. In despair, the tyrant proclaimed his heroic bloodline, but the power that burst forth now threatened his empire. The tyrant growled fiercely, proudly insisting that he would never lose to the creature he considered a monster. Driven mad by despair, he clutched his throne and screamed about conquest, while the enemy calmly prepared. The steps echoed his words dully firmly, with obvious contempt. The opponent dismissed his obsession, mocking the endless fixation on power. With a face twisted by rage, he demanded answers. How many innocent lives had been sacrificed for power? Fury flared as he hurled accusations, recalling the memory of Ali and demanding explanations for countless fallen comrades. In desperation, the tyrant lunged forward, extending bloodied hands, but determination flashed in his adversary's eyes. In a cold, measured tone, the tyrant promised that understanding would come someday, and his enemy froze for a moment, stunned. Their clash ended brutally. Both fell from the blow, and crimson flooded the silence of the throne room. Panic erupted among the nobles. They begged for forgiveness and trembled before the irresistible presence of the victorious force. Stained with blood but unyielding, he sneered coldly. His resolve hardened, and he feared not the crumbling imperial order. Standing over the trembling courtiers, he reflected on their hypocrisy. Once they were cruel, and now they desperately begged for mercy. Clenching his fists, he acknowledged the truth. Power is survival, and what surrounded him defined only might. Nobles before him trembled silently. Fear spread rapidly, and every knee bowed before his will. Pain and remorse were etched in his heart, if only he had understood the meaning of power much earlier. Carefully lifting Ali in his arms, he gently pulled her and quietly whispered, apologizing for the delay, as they finally set off together. Among scattered volumes, he came across an ancient grimoire and whispered a forbidden spell to summon Genesis. Darkness raged wildly, manifesting Lilith, the Queen of Death. Her invincible presence radiated fear and authority. Her empty gaze questioned existence itself, demanding an answer. Why was she created, and for what purpose summoned? He boldly declared his intent, and asked Lilith for help to resurrect Ali with her necromantic power. Lilith acknowledged it was possible but warned. Extracting Ali's soul from the underworld would have dangerous consequences. Lilith warned human souls are fragile. If Ali is revived, he might lose irreplaceable parts of her essence. She explained simply, these are fragments of lost memory Ali's past, which could be erased forever. He looked at Ali's lifeless body, and fear gnawed from within, afraid he might disappear. In the haze, Ali looked innocent, trembling, and it reminded him of everything he so desperately wanted to preserve. After Lilith clarified further, new memories began to disappear first, depending on the true strength of her soul. Memories of Ali's laughter and her kindness resurfaced, reminding him of everything truly worth protecting. Lilith assured that regret would not harm life, and with calm, piercing words, she pushed him toward a decision. Yet recalling Ali's radiant smile, he silently accepted the risk. Determination outweighed hesitation and fear. He firmly commanded resurrection. Lilith's magic flooded Ali, summoning divine power to bring her back. Her body convulsed spasmodically as light flashed inside, shards of the soul intertwined with the flesh again. Memories surfaced, joyful days with Ali and friends, but now they faced the looming cost of rebirth. Even if every memory vanishes, he vowed to protect her, cherishing her existence above all else. Holding her fragile body, he accepted the risk. Tears mingled with resolve stronger than despair. He carefully carried Ali to safety, assuring her unconscious body that help awaited her in sorrow. Under the fading night sky, he whispered a sincere truth. Those shared days were his happiness. He confessed his dream real hero parties, fighting side by side with alien friends, not alone. Looking at her calm face, he felt his heart swelling because he knew their connection could disappear forever. Yet he sincerely thanked her, cherishing their friendship as the most precious gift he had ever received. Ali quietly whispered an apology, but silence hung in the air. Unspoken words floated between hearts separated by fate. With a firm decision, he turned around and walked away, leaving her behind, quietly whispering a final farewell. The vision of a joyful boy echoed softly until her awakening blurred, leaving barely perceptible ties behind. Slowly opening her eyes, She whispered confusion and emptiness mixed in her voice where memories once lived. Soldiers rushed to her rescue, addressing her respectfully, Princess Alexandra, their rightful sovereign. Relatives warmly embraced her, gently scolded, sighed with relief, still unaware of the truth hidden beneath the rebirth. Tears welled up in her eyes. She quietly called the name Alex. She herself did not understand why sadness covered her heart. Overwhelmed by confusion, Ali cried she was saved by someone unknown, but her memories of him completely vanished. Supported by others, she clung to them convulsively, her heart torn by emptiness and pain she could not explain. Meanwhile, he accepted her memory loss and decided that never seeing her again was normal. Cherishing the past, he declared those days real, a power born from the bonds that shaped him. Diving into dark research, he summoned synthesis magic and decided, only memories can forge power without compromise. Relentlessly, he absorbed countless demons, their power further amplifying his own terrifying might. He swore that no one would ever harm what he cherished most again. But he released synthesis, broke the fusion, returned his companions despite the price it demanded. Summoning Nacha, he ordered revival and vowed never to lose Primo, Afar, and Fjord. Awakening, they heard him solemnly name them, demanding loyalty, obedience, and unconditional devotion. The boy kneels before his comrades, proclaims the command, and holds unity and faithfulness under his rule. He confidently strides forward, pledging never to lose anyone dear, determination burning within him as a sign. His cloak flares sharply as he swears to embody fear to protect all that matters. Before the throne, he unleashes dark power, summoning a symbolic crown of authority. Puts on a mask, proclaims himself Emperor. Noah Empire demands fear and respect. The threat sits confidently on the throne, orders unconditional obedience, and demands that all bow before him. A sea of soldiers kneels before him, acknowledging his terrible power and new dominion. A cold gaze proclaims supremacy, weighing the burden of seizing the highest power. With demons born from Genesis, the threat pressures the invaders and neighbors unite to strike at his empire. But the more he kills, the more enemies multiply. Furious legions rise, each time stronger against him. Menace studies the map, worried about the growing hostility between kingdoms tied to the church. He understands neighboring states tighten the noose and enemies close in from all sides. A voice warns him, one day he will understand the burden of power. Memories of the fallen ruler reveal fear and loneliness, which led to his downfall. Firmly resorting to determination, he issues a threat and an oath, never again to repeat that weakness, swearing to forge fate by his own path. Menace declares his strength, vows to personally crush the enemies surrounding him. Transforming into a terrible form, he roars at the top of his voice so that everyone fears his immense power. And he annihilates an entire army, spreading terror across the world as the Demon Lord. His subordinates grow stronger after countless battles. They evolve into formidable warriors called Demon Princes. Among them rise Fiori, Lord of Archbeasts, and Melmo, Lord of Fate, in rivalry. At first, Primo, Lord of Ruin, and Noshi, Lord of Death, stood as fiercely powerful rulers. Afir, Lord Arbor, and Uraheim, Lord of Sea Phase, demonstrated their colossal might. Architellus, Lord of Machines, completed 7, fortifying the empire like nothing else can compare. Together, the 7 demon princes did not allow any force to challenge the absolute rule of Menace. Destruction struck suddenly, buildings collapsed, and among the ruins a living survivor was found. Menace walks ominously and coldly. While in despair, a girl calls his name through tears. She is overwhelmed by grief and shock. The story contrasts Menace's desire for domination with the girl's vow to avenge justice. Fate hints at their meeting in 10 years, while Menace continues to walk his merciless path. Having grown up, Alexander raises resistance, breaks free from the place, and vows to take revenge with wild, stubborn zeal for her devastated homeland. Alexandra proudly reveals herself, raises her weapon, and vows to defeat Menace as lawful justice. Alexandra wildly rushed forward at the demon knight Menace, with her sword raised high, determined to lay him down. Now memories surface. Alexander recalls the boy who once reached out and saved her during despair. Standing before him again, Alexander trembles, just realizing that the enemy before her is the same boy. Her eyes widen in shock as she confirms the truth. She threatens the boy who has been reborn. The hero recognizes Menace from their previous encounter, and it shocks him as he, confused, questions her about memory. Menace, meanwhile, was tossing inside from panic, fearing that she had revealed his true identity, the Demon Lord Menace. He tries to deny and nervously insists that he knows nothing, while she struggles to find words, trying to voice her growing understanding and suspicion. Suddenly, the hero dodges, boldly asks for friendship, and leaves Menace completely stunned and bewildered. The embarrassed hero awkwardly retreats backward, hastily apologizing, while Menace remains stunned by her sudden demand. The hero sincerely thanks the mage for help, recalling how he rescued him during the crew's attack by assassins. Minas remembered putting on the Imperial mask and felt relief. It concealed his identity as the Lord of Demons. He asks if the Empress should bow to him, and she nervously admits he is right. The Empress tries to speak, embarrassed, unable to form clear words under Manas's calm gaze. She confesses her weakness, unable to maintain a majestic appearance, and urges with a threat to keep it a secret. The man asks if this is the same timid Alex who once defeated him as a heroic leader. He recalls her vulnerability and understands. She is like that frightened girl who once cried in the dark. Alex suddenly smiles warmly, and Manus freezes, stunned, not knowing how to read her expression. Minas compares her to Ali, reinterprets his behavior, and wonders what true role he plays beside her. Breaking away from anger, Menens longs for the absence of his companion, and dreams that someone else would save this awkward and tangled tension. Minas tries to leave quietly, but Alex stops him and nervously asks for a chance to talk. She insists it won't take long and is determined to ask him her urgent questions. Menes notices her grip trembling and realizes, behind the outward persistence lie despair and hesitation. Sighs creakily, hesitating, but still decides to listen to her, curious about what her real intentions are. Alex greedily asks for his name and Manus cautiously introduces himself, while Maddie giggles. Alex is happy when he hears his fake name, and Manus wonders if she suspects the deception. She bombards him with playful and casual questions, behaving as if he is a traveler, not nobility. Embarrassed, Alex admits that she feels like she should be honest with him despite her appearance. Menes understands how the natural magic in her works like the same power that recruited many. Lowering his gaze, Alex suggests sitting on the ground, but Menus, grumbling to himself, still gives him his chair. Alex flinches as cups and teapots float in the air, revealing Menes's exquisite magical ability. She thanks excitedly, stunned by his mysterious skill, and Manus casually brushes it off as a joke. Menes warns her not to confuse his actions, but Alex still happily thanks him. He is annoyed by her childish stubbornness, and he reminds her that he himself wanted to ask something. Alex explained her last message from the fairyland and declined the invitation from the famous heroes. Alex recalls hearing about a man with silver hair in black cloak. He defeated Metahog. She confidently recognizes Mandy as that very man and immediately goes straight to him, voicing her suspicions. Threat pretends indifference confuses her logic and makes her doubt why she thinks it is him. Alex explains that she recognizes his protective shadows, recalls how they saved her more than once. With tears in her eyes, Alex admits that she knows he always secretly helped her. Alex reflects on the coincidences and suddenly realizes, in the most dangerous times, the Empire was always covered by hidden help. She concludes that Maddie was behind it and suspects. Even Nuthog's defeat was connected to him. Setting herself to determination, Alex confidently states that she definitely knows. Maddie is the mysterious savior. Confusion overwhelms her bold words. She hesitates as she begins to doubt her own conclusion. Menes acknowledges her unexpected sharpness but corrects her, preparing to explain her mistake. Threat insists that his actions are only his own selfish choices, not sacrifices for her, and demands that he not be misunderstood in any way. Alex joyfully praises him despite everything, convinced of his greatness and grateful for his help. The shift of threat changes the conversation. Menes credits Nuthog's defeat at Mickley's, but hides that she herself was left behind. He interrogates Alex about her intentions, surprised why he ended up in her invitation, along with Princess Mickley's. Alex explained that Mickley's alone could not justify the invitation, hinting her true interests are in him. Menes presses Alex, asking if she has any more questions she truly wants answered. He is gnawed by the thought, what made her deviate from Riznor's story and invite him. Alex admits her honesty, realizing she can no longer hide anything from him. She states that he is the strongest person she has ever met, comparing him to Manus. In despair, Alex tears the table with blows, and in a pleading tone demands the threat finally reveal the truth. Alex desperately leans forward and demands, how can she gain power like Manus? Gathering her spirit, Alex shouts with determination, declaring she must become stronger to protect everyone. She cried out in despair, driven by guilt and fear, and demanded strength to protect what remains. Tormented by memories of helplessness, she vowed to become stronger no matter the cost. Watching her determination closely, he recalled his past, how once ambitions pushed him onto a reckless path. He questioned her determination, feeling that behind the obsession to quickly gain more power something deeper was hidden. Despite her achievements, she brushed them off, calling it luck, thereby revealing a doubt that still smoldered and unresolved inner fears. Looking back, he realized everything was arranged by Minas. His own victory turned out strangely staged, empty. She admitted her rise was never solely her merit. External forces forged her rule and called Menos' fall. Dissatisfaction among the people grew louder. She blamed her weakness on the state's instability and fear. She believed power is acceptance, so she decided to gain authority so that no one would reject her. He calmly questioned her motives and warned, power without purpose leads only to tyranny and fear. He calmly warned her, the misuse of power turns rulers into monsters no better than those who fell. His stern gaze pierced her doubt, as if asking whether her plan was truly justice through domination. At the table she hid her fears, suppressing every doubt with a silent smile. He understood, her struggle went much deeper, no allies nearby, almost no strength, and burdens only grew beyond her role. Softly he asked if her title oppressed her spirit more than any enemy could. He described the lonely weight of decisions about power. Sacrifices, isolation without joy, only endless responsibility. She clung to words, unable to answer. His question threw her off balance. Why choose such torment when escape exists? He suggested leaving everything behind, returning home, reclaiming peace, and shedding the burden of the empire. She considered the proposal, recalling the calm of home, warm welcome, and life without war. But she knew her absence would unleash chaos, ignite new wars, breed new tyrants, and destroy all they had managed to gain. She declared that someone must put an end to the wars, and believed that someone could be someone, only not herself. He pressed her again, why you? What truly drives your conviction forward? He questioned, why defend this land? Is it really worth the sacrifices she will have to make? Does prolonged betrayal, pain, and loneliness justify defending an empire destined to use her? He sincerely asked the question she had long avoided. Why does she still hold on to that throne? He stared into her eyes, demanding an honest answer. What truly fuels her desire to rule? She froze, replaying the question within herself, and could not name what was still driving her forward. Her memory reached back to the moment when kindness touched her in helpless youth. She remembered a boy from this very city. He reached out his hand when no one else did. That boy gently lifted her with a soft hand, instantly sowing the first seed of her determination today. She quietly smiled, believing that the boy was still somewhere nearby, silently watching and subtly guiding her path. That bright hope ignited her heart, her eyes sparkled, every glance was meaningful, and memories rose deeper than ever before. Saying this aloud, she realized, her dream to become worthy of the kindness once shown to her had come true. Her voice trembled with determination. She longed to become a hero, one her own hero could be proud of. Though the name and face had faded, the feeling remained a blurred but unforgettable instant glow of grace. Though he was small, the memory remained precious to her, one that inspired a lifetime of meaning and purpose. She admitted the admiration had never faded. Now she wanted to help others as he once helped her. With confidence, she vowed to become strong without corruption, and humbly asked him for advice. Recalling their past, he silently confirmed, their shared time truly mattered. Her radiant courage confirmed she had not forgotten, and perhaps that is what distinguishes a true hero. She embraced her path, held tightly to hope, and moved forward despite fear and uncertainty. She was not chosen by fate, she chose herself, embodying strength, compassion, and a stubborn will to endure. He admitted there was a lack of hope in the past, yet he still believed that Alex could become what he himself could never achieve. He saw and heard the hero he once imagined standing tall beside a worthy empress. Her sincerity reached him. He accepted everything, moved by her will, ready to help her rise again. He explained that his methods could not be copied, but promised her a personal path to power. When she gladly agreed to everything, he without hesitation activated his absurdly named elite level of the training program. She was stunned by this power. She did not know if it was truly serious or pure madness breaking through. The training began harshly. He reprimanded her for her posture, mocked her aim, and summoned enchanted training dummies. To measure progress, he challenged her directly, hit him once in an honest match. She dashed forward with a strike to destroy, unleashing the fiercest assault, but it did not hit cleanly. He easily deflected her blow, not at all impressed by her strength, and wondered how she could even fight the demon lord. Although she defeated Manus, it brought no growth. He was only a puppet, not a true enemy. Her skills never blossomed. Her power lay dormant. The legendary ability, Lord of Rose, was still sealed. Seeing her fall again, he realized, to hold both titles, she needed much more strength. He understood her special mastery had strict conditions. To unlock it, she had to prove control, act with tactics, and undergo personal growth. His plan ignited. He recalled old gaming days when he honed combos and stats for hours. Her training crashed into chaos when she slipped away right during the attack, and overwhelmed by pure panic, grabbed him. They tumbled wildly, crashing to the ground. Training momentarily flew from their minds in pure, utter absurdity. Lying in the grass, both gasping with laughter and finally feeling their first true joy. The girl lies on the ground, smiling, having fun. At last, she fought someone who posed a serious challenge. She talks about her royal origin. She was always treated specially, and no one ever truly tested her strength. Sitting upright, she laughs gratefully. For the first time, someone fought without restraint, and it brought her joy. He silently watches her, and from distant memory emerges a duel they once shared long ago. She recalls their meeting in childhood, a heartfelt request to be friends, and that moment settled forever in her heart. She remembered everything from the moment she was saved. Quietly, she longed to understand the man behind that strength. Over tea, she spoke frankly. Her curiosity deepened into a sincere desire to know him. With calm, unwavering confidence, she prepared to repeat the words she had kept in her heart since that very first day. Standing before him again, she extended her hand and sincerely asked for friendship firmly, without any hesitation. He did not expect her to remember, but her words broke through the barriers he himself had built. Clenched hands trembled as memories burst forth with laughter, promises, and distant childhood attachment. He smiled gently upon hearing her vow. Despite everything, she remained sincere, genuine, truly unlike anyone else. As soon as their hands drew near, the silence was suddenly broken by an abrupt interruption, and the moment froze. A guard rushed in screaming, shattering the silence, and sharply turning, fell silent from startled alarm. They stood against the soldiers together. The joy faded as soon as the news of the state of emergency shattered their peace. The alarming news spread instantly. 5 elite assassins broke through the defense and are rushing to the city's main street. The likely target was Princess Macaulay's. She was already openly strolling nearby, unaware of the approaching danger. She got scared, remembering that she had postponed the meeting with Macaulay. The situation worsened more than she could imagine. In the chaos, they demanded orders from her, and she questioned who had given permission for the public parade. She was frozen by a shocked silence. Her name was called again, and suddenly the burden of leadership fell heavily on her. His calm was broken. The soldier's audacity flared into rage. No one insults the Empress. He warned them coldly and commandingly, demanding reverence. Even the warriors trembled under his gaze and sharp words. He refused to wait for orders and vowed without hesitation to track down and crush the assassins himself. Without warning, he confronted Alex, loudly declaring her intentions, and stormed off, not giving her even time to protest. He smiled mid-flight. It was not a real threat, just perfect training for the new Empress. Alex panicked mid-flight, shouting that she was not ready, and the fear of failure completely froze her heart. He bombarded her with precise questions, forcing her to consider pride, duty, and Princess Macaulay. She silently looked ahead. Her hands slowly clenched what was inside, and finally something began to change. Nodding firmly, she accepted the challenge. Determination on her face replaced hesitation. Above all this chaos, assassins were noticed. The real battle was about to begin. Diving sharply down, he threw shadow mist. The area blackened from dark magic and covered their appearance. Macaulay's eyes widened sharply, shock, cough. When he saw him again, anger, misunderstanding, and hidden relief flared inside. Maddie calmly ordered Alex, and tightly gripping the sword, felt the nerves retreat as confidence and resolve grew. He led her sharp clarity, standing still, to fight bravely and never retreat. With renewed strength, she prepared to fight, and he silently vowed to protect her from the shadows. Side by side, they stood ready. The real fight was approaching, no longer training, only action. Sudden smoke burst out sharply and fiercely as Alexandra and Michelle appeared on the ceremonial parade carriage. Seeing the smoke, the nearby attackers turned and listened as Alexandra's voice rose authoritatively. Having declared her imperial title, Alexandra raised her sword and vowed to protect her guests at any cost. The enemy froze in shock, unable to believe that Empress Alexandra herself had appeared on the battlefield. Whispering to Princess Michelle, Alexander quietly apologized before preparing without hesitation to face the danger. Alexandra boldly stepped forward, insisting she and Maddie would take the reins themselves and handle the situation. Suddenly, Maddie disappeared from the POF, catching Alexandra and Michelle off guard in the heat of commands. Maddie silently vanished, explaining that he had activated invisibility, so he decided to support rather than fight head-on. Wavering but under pressure, Alexandra realized she would have to face the enemies alone who were gathering before their carriage. Beside the enemy blades, Alexandra faced danger head-on while her foes loudly mocked her appearance. When the enemies charged, Alexandra gathered herself. Maddie wished her luck and disappeared again. Alexandra held her ground and did not dodge to protect Princess Michelle, who stood behind her. Maddie appeared just in time and reinforced the defense before the blades could break through. Encouraged by Maddie, Alexandra surged forward and, clashing swords, simultaneously engaged 2 enemies. Although her instincts were sharp, Alexandra still needed Maddie's hint not to fall behind their pace. Maddie noticed how Alexandra was rapidly progressing, so she gave her everything thanks to her adaptability and perhaps hidden strength through her unique skill. Alexandra naturally began to anticipate the attack, and this shocked Medi. How quickly she absorbed the combat instincts. Their interaction sharpened. Medi helped, precisely adjusting strength and timing as if she knew every move of Alexandra in advance. A strange memory surfaced for Alexandra, and it seemed to her this moment had somehow already happened in another life. Relying on Medi's signal, Alexandra suddenly delivered a powerful strike exactly at the moment he whispered the perfect timing. Alexandra smashed the enemy with precision, stunning the spectators who had underestimated her growing power. She felt only 4 levels remained, and then her mysterious power Lord of Rose would awaken. Reinforcements rushed to her like a whirlwind, and Princess Mickley screamed in fear as danger rapidly approached. Medi calmly pacified Meckles, insisting that everything was under control and that this was only part of his grand plan. With confidence, Medi watched as Alexandra surged forward rapidly, perceiving enemies only as steps for experience. Alexandra felt an unusual lightness. Her movements became sharper as she flew into the next battle. When the killers drew closer, she noticed. Her senses sharpened, so now she read everything much better. Fear disappeared. Alexandra struck confidently without hesitation and doubt. She dealt with her enemies. A quick spin and a kick tore the enemy ranks apart. The body acted faster than she could think. Even surrounded, she remained calm, the quiet support of Maddie her shield in every deadly moment. Their gazes crossed for a moment. Alexandra and Maddie exchanged silent confidence before the next clash began. Approaching unnoticed from behind, the enemy lunged. Alexandra still held the already drawn dagger, and he had no idea she was ready to strike. Flipping over Maddie's back, Alexandra delivered a precise counterattack, feeling how the invisible defense guided her. Focusing on her promise to become stronger, Alexandra struck with determination to become a true hero. When the dust settled, she stood just one step away from awakening her true power. Raising her sword, Alexandra confronted the last attacker face to face, demanding answers about who was behind it all. Laughing ominously, the enemy showed that it was all just a distraction to buy time. He shouted into the crowd. Dozens of hidden assassins were already waiting for the signal. Alexandra silenced him with a deadly blow, but panic had already spread across the square. Shouts burst out from the crowd. Peaceful people scattered in all directions, and chaos covered the once controlled battlefield. The panic only thickened. Citizens screamed, pushed each other, and blamed one another, desperately searching for their loved ones. Alexandra stepped forward, realizing if she did not intervene immediately, this chaos could turn deadly. Maddie reminded herself, whether frightened civilians or hidden assassins, only she alone could now restore order. He urged her to awaken the power that slumbered inside, her unique talent precisely for this. A dazzling light flashed as Alexandra whispered the name of her destiny, Lord of Rose. Maddie silently watched. The legendary skill Lord of Rose had finally awakened in Alexandra. Surrounded by radiant petals, Alexandra began absorbing skills from every boss she had ever defeated. The ability, rooted in the Resnoa system, rewarded experience, unlocking new powers through battles. Reaching level 10 was the first requirement. Now her attributes matched the awakening conditions. The second condition, an unwavering desire to walk the path of a true hero. To reveal the true power of the skill, Alexandra had to defeat the mighty boss herself. But in this world, she missed all the boss fights and immediately rushed to the final event. Without victory over the proper boss, her skills would have remained dormant within her at full strength. Fortunately, Alexandra had already beaten one boss before the critical battle, whose fate had not yet been erased. It was that enemy, the Demon Lord, whom she once defeated in the climactic clash. Her blade had not yet pierced him. The power was insufficient, but he still acknowledged her. The past unfolded. Alexandra smiled, not knowing that her false victory would later become real today. Ajita accepted defeat with pride, without tricks, without remorse. The moment belonged to Alexandra. When the rose bloomed in her palm, Alexandra unlocked the power to copy the boss. She activated her first copied skill, Demon Lord Minus's Might of the Emperor, and everyone present was shocked. Alexandra stood upright, and the enemies bowed their heads. They were overwhelmed by her divine presence and power. She boldly declared that the citizens should remain calm, because assassins might try to take her head right now. Alexandra shouts, silencing resistance, challenging anyone who dared threaten her people or her rule. Exhausted, the attackers surrendered. The soldiers shook their hands as Alexandra demanded to maintain a civil conversation. Loudly swearing an oath, Alexandra cast aside all fear. She would never run away or hesitate again. People lined the streets and shouted with joy as Empress Alexandra returned victorious from her latest campaign. Alexandra confidently raised her hand in response to the praise, while Muckle Eyes nervously peeked from beside her. Alexandra sincerely apologized to Princess Muckleeyes, ashamed that her lateness had put Muckleeyes in danger. Suddenly flustered, Muckleeyes blushed and awkwardly insisted that she was not hurt at all and was not in any trouble. Everyone tried to look brave. Mackles boasted about her experience, masking early fear with a smile. Muckleeyes smiled brightly, reassured Alexandra, and assured her that she was unharmed and needed no additional help. Touched by Muckleeyes' modesty, Alexandra warmly thanked her, visibly moved by the young princess's kindness. Without any warning, Alexandra picked up Muckleeyes in her arms and, not stepping back a single step, made her accompany her straight to the castle. So the crowd erupted again, with applause and joyful shouts crowding around Alexandra and Muckleeyes as they rode triumphantly together. Later, Alexandra thanked Mendy, giving her credit for helping unlock her power and harden her resolve. Amid cheers and applause, Alexandra felt that something was wrong and sharply looked around. Only then did she notice that Mehdi was not nearby. Looking at him from afar, Alexandra quietly asked where he had gone and why he disappeared. With warm attention, Mehdi acknowledged her progress and understood. A truly worthy ruler had already begun to emerge into the world. He knew Alexandra's story would now unfold freely as she wished, not risk Noah. Mehdi quietly whispered farewell with a gentle smile, passing the future to the true protagonist. The inhabitants gathered, impressed by the Empress's power. Her might and leadership deeply enchanted everyone. The soldiers whispered anxiously, realizing the Empress's rule meant that the hero squad was no longer needed. Minna watched calmly and everything unfolded as planned. After the incident, the general respect and admiration for the Empress only grew. Before the Empress, everyone bowed not out of fear, but out of sincere respect for her commanding presence. Ordinary citizens smiled. They believed that meeting Princess Mickles would bring peace and friendship for a long time. Men confidently reassured others, believing that these two would manage without any problems. In the chamber, the officials concluded the hearing after gathering enough details regarding the Nidahogg case. The report was completed, and the head of the investigation was dismissed with thanks for her cooperation. Although she was detained for a long time, she politely accepted the procedure, knowing it was necessary for official records. Later, she vented her frustration alone, angry that Minnie's disappeared, leaving her with all the hard work. She was interrogated about their past and looked surprised. He endangered her even though they were in the same party. At first, she joined to lead him, but others misunderstood their unexpectedly close working relationship. Gradually, she fell behind. He covered for her, reliably and firmly, restructuring roles in ways no one expected. No matter how embarrassed she was, she quietly admitted his presence mattered to her, she just couldn't say it. Despite her denials, anger slipped out. She knew it too well, and everyone who saw noticed it. The Empress noticed her trust. Seeing through the hesitation she did not dare to admit she felt. They both acknowledged his strange nature, yet still noticed his quiet acts of support and reliability. He lived boldly, solving problems instinctively. His freedom and courage left many both strange and inspired. Eventually, she accepted the truth. He earned her trust through actions, not just words. They laughed together, agreeing that he was an eccentric, yet admitted his presence strangely affected each of them. She confessed to receiving the award and admitted that the Empress seemed much more approachable than she had expected. The Empress attributed her growth to Madda's support, gaining confidence and pride thanks to his influence. Smiling warmly, she accepted the compliment, happy that her efforts made a noticeable first impression. A moment of silent recognition passed between them, and mutual respect slowly displaced the initial awkward tension. The Empress offered friendship, sensing in it the potential for trust and harmony beyond formalities and past misunderstandings. They both smiled, acknowledging that they felt the same, yet dared to show it only face to face. Laughing sincerely, they exchanged names, setting aside titles for the sake of a personal connection. But their laughter sounded warm, especially after jokes about the nickname accepted by only one of them. The Empress remained alone for a moment, silently reflecting, surprised at how naturally everything had unfolded. She was interrupted just as she gathered her thoughts, and she returned to her duties with a grateful smile. She smiled sincerely and admitted, the meeting was not productive but in fact pleasant and refreshing. Standing by the window, she recalled an old question and suddenly realized she had finally found her own answer. Acknowledging her weakness, she accepted that connections and trust would become a true source of strength for her. True leadership meant uniting people and building a peace stronger than what a lonely individual could achieve. Despite all difficulties, she still dreamed of travels not as a ruler but as a true heroine. Yet she smiled brightly and extended her hand to Guilford, asking him to support her in the busy future. Tormented by pangs of conscience, Guilford remembered how he had seen previous leaders fall and could not stop their tragic ends. He had many chances to intervene, but fear and hesitation stopped him from changing their fate. She recognized limits, unlike those before her, but still asked him for strength. With sincerity, she took his hands, repeating her plea again and again, not as a commanding demand, but as an honest need. Guilford fell to his knees with conviction, offering her his loyalty and strength to serve without hesitation. Mikkels fell onto the bed and sighed with relief. The Empress had indeed turned out to be kind and welcoming. She pondered the sophistication of Alexandria and was already impressed by its power, despite the limited time in the position of Empress. Involuntarily smiling, Nicole felt true joy from having gained such a genuinely worthy and trusting new friend. Suddenly, everything stopped. She got scared. Medi appeared again, mocking, touching her tender side and teasing her pride. Modestly but sharply, Maddie scolded he was irritated by the boy's carefreeness and suspiciously luxurious return. It annoyed her, but she was exhausted. Was his cause really worth disappearing for her sake? Maddie grinned smugly. She liked how everything turned out and even savored the game from the shadows. He joyfully told that he finally visited places he hadn't had time to see. She smiled. She was pleased that he found joy. Without warning, he pulled her away again, ignoring her protests and completely shattering dreams of unfinished walks and sightseeing. Mandy reminded Mickley that she could not wander freely. Her status always attracted excessive public attention. To cheer her up, he offered treats she wanted, though not exactly as she expected. She blushed at the thought that it was hers, and he calmly took and bit it without hesitation. Vengefully retaliating, Nicole searched through her bag out of spite, began scolding him, and declared that he did not deserve kindness. Hiding in her room, she fiercely gnawed on his snacks, angry, embarrassed, and still sulking as always. Alexandria entered and shuddered upon seeing Maddie again. His sudden appearance instantly threw her off balance and pushed her into anxiety. Seeing them cuddling, she quietly asked if they were already leaving and feared hearing the answer. Mandy explained that they had no reason to stay, especially when his identity was under threat. Alexandria, regretful, admitted that she still had much to discuss, especially with Mickey, to whom she had grown attached. She also added Maddie's name, quietly admitting even his company had become unexpectedly important. Mandy coldly dismissed her feelings. With an indifferent tone, she brushed off the thanks and did not change her facial expression. Before she could object, he waved goodbye, stating that the job was done, and walked away. Alexandria caught up with him, begged for a little more time together, and held on to him until his composure broke. She confessed he helped her awaken a power not fully deserved, but still highly valued. Maddie reminded, unlike Munlord Mina's, she inspired loyalty not through fear but through respect. She acknowledged the girl's success, and plainly stated that it was her own achievement earned without any help or interference. He clarified, his actions were not for her, he acted only on his own will to prevent emotional misunderstanding. She accepted his words with a smile, hiding her emotions, and gently called him by name. She vowed to fulfill the imperial duties, striving for peace, and asked him to silently observe. Her voice trembled with determination. She wanted both the him from the past and the him from the present to see her future victory. He smiled at her brave determination mockingly and told her to try to impress him. Meanwhile, Alex and her companion promised to write, hoping to reconnect and talk more. Waving her hand in farewell, she declared that someday her hopes would become reality. They would be friends without any conditions. Recalling an old interruption, he flew away on Glacia, and she froze in shock. When he disappeared into the sky, she silently reached out her hand, unable to stop him. She silently watched the sky as he vanished, leaving behind only a ring of wind. A memory from the past played through her thoughts, yet she still smiled, accepting what had just happened. And raising her hand high, she said goodbye while her friend objected to his coldness. On the back of Glacia, his companion petrifiedly scolded him, demanding that he properly respond to her offer of friendship. Blushing, he stated that he was simply embarrassed, diverting the truth aside, while another teased him for being too clumsy. Flashing with unexpected enthusiasm, he announced a plan to return to the fairy kingdom and train her. He outlined a detailed, strict training regimen, thereby revealing a new obsession: to train others as if they were experiments. While flying midair, he activated communication magic and tried to make contact with someone far below on the ground. At home, chaos reigned. When he suddenly disappeared, disputes, complaints, and destruction broke out. Everything turned into a mess. When voices overlapped, he silently exhaled, clearly accustomed to this madness. Organizing the chaos in his mind, he quietly sighed in peaceful solitude and silently called it a hard day. He recalled years of attempts to escape the burdensome past that deeply haunted him. Slowly, link by link, he felt the chains weaken as freedom sprouted from within. He believed if Alex built his peaceful world, then perhaps his own burdens would finally disappear. United in peace, their paths converged, surrounded by friends, the bond quietly strengthened by shared hope. Surrounded by friends, he firmly held her hand and quietly hoped that their peaceful future would become a reality. Rushing forward, he calmly reflected, his journey was not yet over. Much still remained undone. Once he was a terrifying final boss, but now he embraced freedom, watching as the world continued to change and evolve. With a crooked smile and renewed zeal, he announced the start of a new adventure ahead.